Here is the petition.
Merrimack TV, are you ready? Okay. Good evening. Welcome. Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the September 20th, 2021 Merrimack School Board meeting. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome everyone to tonight's school board meeting. This is the public participation section of our agenda. And we very much appreciate your engagement and your comments and your feedback. First, it was decided at our last school board meeting that we would now allow public comments via email. To do this, you may send an email to publiccomment@sau26.org. Again, that email address is publiccomment@sau26.org. We do require, excuse me, your name and address for the record on such documentation. Based on the amount of information we received tonight, our goal is always to read off verbatim the comments as we receive them. If the comments become too heavy in volume, we would just have to not read public comments into testimony. It's an all or nothing proposition. Regardless, we will put all public comments in our minutes for tonight's meeting, but we would just not be able to read them tonight if we can't read them all. I'd just like to be sure to address it up front in case we find ourselves in that position. I do have a couple of ground rules before we get started. Please remember, first and foremost, that we are all neighbors. We all live in this town. People sitting next to you may be people in your very neighborhood, at the grocery store, or greeting you at the bank. Also, those of us on the board are also your neighbors and care greatly about this community. Whether in person or via email, please keep your comments concise and be clear about what you are asking of the board. Please also direct your comments directly to the board. Also, we ask that you keep your comments to 5 minutes or fewer. This will help ensure that we have time to listen to all who wish to speak. If your comments are going longer than 5 minutes, I may give you a warning and ask to wrap up your comments. Second, this is a business meeting. Speaking out of turn and interrupting people in any way while they are speaking will not be tolerated. If this happens, I may have to ask you to leave. I would never want to do that, but I just want to be clear up front. In addition, I'm going to ask people to keep any applause to a minimum. This will help our business meeting run more smoothly. Lastly, please be respectful in your comments, keeping in mind again that we are all neighbors. As a board, we will be respectful to you, and we ask that you be respectful to us in return. When you do come to the microphone, it would be helpful if you could first state your name and address, and even repeat it just for our transcriber to ensure that she's able to document it for the record. If you are a student, please state your first name only and that you are a student. There's no need to state your address. Finally, I'm disappointed that I have to say this, but no swearing will be allowed, and it will result in immediate dismissal from this meeting. Not only do we have a student at this table, but this is a community meeting, and one of which families and students are watching. We are also going to alternate between public, email, and public comments. So what we will do is I will ask someone to come up to the microphone, and then we will alternate. Shannon will read from the email. So whoever would like to go first, please come to the microphone. Welcome.
Is this on? Okay, I can hear it now. Yeah. For the record, I'm Representative Jeanine Notter. I'm the House Majority Whip and the senior member of the Merrimack delegation. I'm here tonight to support the many concerned parents that have contacted me.
Your address, did we?
19 Whittier Road.
Thank you.
Sorry, I've got many emails and messages from concerned parents voicing their disdain for some of the policies in the Merrimack schools. So face coverings is one, and divisive concepts is another. As far as the masks go, if this was a health issue, truly, the border wouldn't be open with tens of thousands of people crossing the border with no vaccine passports and no mask mandate. So that's just something to think about. as far as divisive concepts go, I think it would help if you, the school board, instructed the teachers that under no circumstances are they to teach hate in the classrooms. Thank you.
Shannon?
Thank you. It's from Kate Gagnon of 6 Glenwood Lane. Last year, I read a wonderful book called The Death of Expertise. To overly simplify its summary, it outlines our society's strain from trusting experts in their respective fields. It details how people believe they can find information just a click away that overrules a field expert's years of knowledge. I'm not writing to share my stance on masks or vaccines because mine is irrelevant. What I'm asking is that you defer to the experts. We are privileged to live in a close proximity to some of the top hospitals in not just the country, but the world. Boston Children's is currently ranked #1 in the nation, Mass General is ranked 5th, and right here in New Hampshire we have CHAD. Let those voices, the ones on the top medical experts, be the ones that guide your decisions. In addition to the medical experts, I would encourage you to survey teachers and staff in the district to gain their input on their comfort level regarding having children masked or not. Our family has had the pleasure of attending 3 of Merrimack's schools. At each school, we have been truly blessed by the education and support provided from each of its teachers and staff. We have seen firsthand the level of commitment and the heart they bring to work each and every day. I thank all the district employees for their Herculean efforts during these abundantly strange times. Their voices should be heard and weighed in the decision-making process. After all, they are the heroes showing up to educate our children day after day. In closing to the board, I thank you for your time and the work you are doing.
Thank you. Next speaker. Next speaker at the microphone. And once the speaker ends, the next person can come up while Shannon's reading the next email so we can kind of keep things moving. Thank you.
So my name is Shena D, and I'm at 89 Belmont. For the record, my stance on masks has not changed since I spoke on 8/23. You don't have the authority to force a medical device on my child. You should not have to review this every month. It's the parents' choice to mask their children, regardless of the number of COVID cases. I know a lot of people are going to speak on masks, and I'm actually going to move on to the other topic. So prior to this year, my daughter was in Exeter, so I know about 2Rev. I did not know that Merrimack had contracted with them over the summer to provide services. The email that Bill sent stated that 2Rev, and I quote, builds capacity to support transformation in districts toward equitable and learner-centered schools and systems. Can anyone explain to us what that actually means in simple, easy to understand terms? Because on the Who We Are page on the 2Rev website, they state, and I quote, our team holds diversity, equity, and inclusion as a core value. We recognize that our education system was intentionally designed to marginalize and suppress Black, Indigenous, and people of color, as though this is a fact. For them, diversity only refers to race. Equity is not equality, and I'm not sure how you think you can guarantee equal outcomes, and they only include those who think like them. One of the coaches on the website says, what does it mean to prioritize equity in transforming education? Viewing education from the perspective of a critical race scholar, understanding that our education system is a microcosm of our broader society and that it's been intentionally designed to be racist. For this reason, students of color are systemically oppressed. It is our responsibility to become anti-racist educators and leaders. In the Future of Learning video on their site, they say designers see the world as a kit of parts that they reshape and reassemble to create something new. The narrator says outright, designing is a form of activism. We don't pay teachers to be activists in the classroom. It's not the government's job to turn our children into revolutionaries. The video also says that when we create a single integrated system, students will practice becoming lifelong learners. This is society's new purpose. Again, it's stated as fact, and their mantra is transform, don't tinker. So we're talking about a company with an extreme ideology whose sole objective is to make our children into change agents. 2Revs asks the question, What do we want our students upon graduation to know and be able to do? I don't know when this changed. Haven't parents always wanted their children to learn how to read and write? Don't we want them to learn math and science and history? When did schools get into the business of parenting children? And I don't know when teachers became social workers, therapists, and psychologists, because I know social emotional learning comes into play with this as well, and parents know what's going on with this. So we need to know where you are all at with this, because you either know all of this and you support it, or you know and you don't really care, or you're completely unaware of all of this discussion around critical pedagogy and the harm that it can bring to our children, or you're on the same page as I am. And from what I can see, a good majority of parents in this town and in this state believe that government schools perform a particular function, and that's not to indoctrinate children onto one side. And if you really are unaware of what all of this means, because I want to believe that you don't, then I'm happy to have conversations, send you information, sit down in person, and talk about these things, because I think that's what we need to do. But I don't think that going with 2 revs is okay. And I did print out a copy of their contract, and you can terminate the contract with 30 days notice. So I would encourage you to do that.
Shannon?
This is from Matt Clement at 65 Patton Road. And this is a long one, so I have to scroll the top now for the note. Sorry about that. Dear school board members, I would like this entered into the meeting minutes for tonight's discussion. I will not be attending the meeting because I do not want to be in a confined room indoors with people not wearing masks. We should be following the CDC guidelines and listening to the professionals who know more than most of us about the spread of COVID-19. I've watched most of the school board meetings and must admit that I am shocked that you have people on the school board that sit there without masks. You know who you are, and a lot of voters are watching. This is clearly a political statement, and one I know many people will not forget when it comes time to vote you out of office. I see the anti-mask people coming to the meetings and make a complete circus of the process, and a few board members cave to the loud minority. If you ask at the beginning of the meeting that everyone wear masks and they don't, then ask them to leave. There's been ample time to simply send out a survey to poll the district parents about whether they want masks or not, yet you have chosen not to do that because you want to circumvent the choice of the parents in the district for your own political bias. Had you taken a poll after the numbers for Delta started to rise, you would overwhelmingly see that parents and faculty want to wear masks and not allow people to opt out and spread the virus. Stop ignoring the scientific research and do what should be done to protect our student before we can no longer say 0 students have died in New Hampshire. It's not a matter of if, but when. When that day comes, let's not be in a Merrimack, let it not be a Merrimack student or faculty. And then from the CDC website, 0 to 17-year-old deaths involving COVID in the U.S. is 439. 0 to 17-year-old deaths involving COVID in Florida is 33. In Texas is 62. In California is 41. In Georgia is 20. These schools have been in session longer than New Hampshire, so the numbers are higher. But it's very naive to think that New Hampshire is somehow invincible, and it won't happen here too. I encourage you to read the article here for some interesting and relevant information on masks and children. And it's edweek.org, Face Masks and Kids Separating Fact from Fiction, 2021, August. Just paraphrasing the URL. I want to say that because you have decided to allow parents to opt their kids out and allowing potential spreaders into the classroom with other kids who have opted to wear masks, you should provide numbers to parents on a class-by-class basis so that parents can make an informed decision to pull their kids out of school if the risk is just too great. My child could be in a class with 90% of the kids opting out and spreading the virus to everyone in the room, and I wouldn't even have that information with the exception of asking my kid to spy on other adults for us so that we can make an adult decision. Why is it so hard to be transparent and give us the information? I'm not asking for names or any personal information, just a number of students that will not be wearing a mask in my child's classroom. I get almost daily emails from the school from various pieces of information, so it is not because you do not have the ability to communicate with parents, but that you choose not to do the right thing. Sincerely, Matt Clement.
All right, thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, I'm Michelle Karakaedos of 25 Swift Lane. I have two daughters in the district, one at Thornton's Ferry and one at the middle school. First, I wanted to just say thank you for allowing me to speak here tonight. I wholeheartedly believe that masks are a psychological stressor for children and are destructive to learning and communicating in classrooms. Covering the lower half of the face, both for teachers and students, reduces the ability to communicate. Children lose the experience of mimicking expressions, which is an essential tool for nonverbal communicators. The masks create issues for children when recognizing emotions and social interaction. My job as a school counselor in another district, and it's to recognize children's emotions, help support them in their feelings, and guide them to better understanding of social and emotional learning. I serviced multiple students last week alone in crisis, and 9 out of 10 students were de-escalated when offered a mask break. I work with all students, but I also work with students who are prone to violent behaviors, as well as students with special needs. One student who is 8 years old, minimal communication skills, and on an IEP, started hitting teachers, throwing objects around the classroom. And as soon as I arrived on the call, he grabbed my mask and pulled it like this, snapped back in my face. I immediately asked him if he wanted to see my face. He grunted yes. I stepped back to make sure that I'm doing my job. Not only did he de-escalate immediately, we were able to move on, clean up the mess he made, and move on with our day. Section 126-U4 is prohibition of dangerous restraint techniques, which I actually am trained in. No school or facility shall use or threaten to use any of the following restraint or behavior control techniques. Number 1, any physical restraint or containment technique that A, obstructs a child's respiratory airway or impairs the child's breathing or respiratory capacity or restricts the movement required for normal breathing. All right, and it goes and pinpoints a bunch of different ones. I'm going to go down to the bottom. Number 4, any technique that unnecessarily subjects the child to ridicule, humiliation, or emotional trauma. So if I come on and this child needed to be restrained, legally, I'm not allowed to restrain him with that mask on. Yet what is happening? Can we ensure that teachers are following suit to make sure that they're not going to restrain that child? And if they're not going to restrain that child, that's now a safety issue, because the reason we restrain children is because there are safety issues at hand. Either they're harming somebody else or themselves. So legally, we need to figure this out, because this is not okay. Because if I had the choice and I had to restrain a child who has a mask, I cannot keep him safe from himself or others, because I'm going to break the law. Professor Yvonne Cassart from the Department of Infectious Diseases of University of Sydney says that masks are only effective as long as they stay dry. Masks do not function after 20 minutes due to saturation. As soon as they become saturated with the moisture in your breath, they stop doing their job and pass droplets. Wearing a mask already worn is riskier than no mask. So my question is, are you as a district monitoring our children while they're wearing masks every 20 minutes? Are we offering clean masks every 20 minutes? Are we changing these masks? Again, I see this every single day with children's masks who are completely soaked in front of me, especially with my nonverbal friends who struggle with muscle issues, who are drooling, and they're coming to my office soaked. That is a safety issue. Furthermore, a February 2021 study done by the CDC found that masking may impede breathing, which can trigger acute anxiety attacks in susceptible individuals, more likely to occur in children. I'm seeing this on a daily with anxiety anxiety heightened with my kiddos. I'm a mandated reporter here in the state of New Hampshire, just like every single person in this room. New Hampshire law requires any person who suspects that a child under the age of 18 has been abused or neglected must report that suspicion immediately to DCYF. If a child tells you that he or she has been hurt, furthermore, we have grounds. A definition of Child abuse is physically, sexually, or mentally injuring a child, either with intent or through neglect. This is neglectful for the reasons I've just stated. According to childhealth.org, children should be safe and adults are responsible to keep themselves. That is our jobs. We must be able to recognize the signs and the risk of child abuse. And furthermore, I do not support two revolutions. I believe critical race theory is illegal in the state of New Hampshire. And we need to be taking that because, again, like I just talked about, I cannot restrain a child who has a mask because it is illegal. So that's my job. And it's endangering a child, which, again, I am a mandated reporter, as we all are, and we need to put our children first and foremost. Thank you guys so much.
Shannon?
Ashley Lowe, 2 West Chamberlain Road. Thank you for opening up an avenue for public comment to be entered, even if not read aloud at a meeting, via email by those who cannot attend a meeting. I have been watching the meetings on TV and do not currently feel comfortable coming to the meetings in person. From what I have seen, the room is where meetings are held is rather small and has lately become very crowded with the vast majority of those in attendance not wearing masks. I feel this is not a safe environment to put myself in during a pandemic that seems to be gaining steam rather than slowing down. I also have fears about my personal safety, as my opinion will be different from that of most of the people in attendance, and the behavior of some residents gives me pause to attend in person. I write to encourage the board to rethink the current policy on making masks mandatory for everyone in the school district building. The entirety of the preschool through elementary school population is not yet age eligible for a vaccine to help protect them against COVID-19. In recent weeks, pediatric cases have been steadily climbing, as well as hospitalization and PICU or pediatric ICU admissions among children who have been diagnosed with COVID-19. I feel the very least we can do to help protect our children, who are largely unprotected without access to vaccines, is to have them wear a mask while inside district buildings, as well as on buses to and from school. Masking is a simple and easy way to offer them at least some protection. My son is a student at Merrimack High School. He is on an IEP. He has autism. Wearing a mask is extremely challenging for him because he has fairly severe sensory issues that make it hard. I send him in a mask every day because I believe it is the right thing to do. He is doing his part. We as a family are doing our part to help control the spread of this virus. He does not like it at all. I choose not to opt him out. Even with his disability, he is still being expected to help slow the spread. Even with his difficulty with the mask and how it feels on his face, he is still doing his part to help protect his classmates and his teachers, paraprofessionals, and therapists. Please take notice that this pandemic looked vastly different in May when the district asked parents to make choices about their students' return to school. We were asked what we wanted to do when case numbers were low and the district was offering mitigation for COVID-19 with distancing and masks. A couple months later, the reopening plan was announced. It stated that even though state agencies recommended students and staff be masked while in buildings, masks would be optional. A motion was made to make masks mandatory, but the district offered parents an opt-out, essentially making masks optional. It wasn't a policy, it was a cop-out. Around the same time, any truly district-supported robust remote options for the majority of the students was also taken away. Special education aside, where there seems to be so much more flexibility for those who are on an IEP to access their curriculum remotely, the vast majority of students lost the fully remote option. The Delta variant that has driven case counts up and has caused an exponential spike in cases amongst children. Vaccines help to prevent severe illness and death. Our youngest student population cannot yet reap the benefit of those vaccines. Their parents, as well as the parents of vaccinated children with compromised immune systems or those who have family members who are more at risk for severe disease, had to make an impossible choice when those robust remote options were taken away. The Delta variant changes things. It is a very different landscape than it was in May. I ask the board to please consider making masking mandatory for everyone while in the district building and while using district contracted transportation services to and from school. I also ask the board to please strongly consider offering a remote option like parents had access to for the 2020-2021 school year. Asking parents to send their children into an unsafe school building or have to homeschool their children because the remote options are no longer available is just not right. Masks will offer an inexpensive layer of protection that would make parents feel a little bit better about the choice to send their child into a building to access their education. There is no substitute for in-person education. It is the best choice for everyone when it can be delivered safely for all involved. The last thing I want to see is for cases to spread quickly again and for the district to have to go back to remote for any amount of time. My son deserves better than that. He was remote from March of 2020 through June 28, 2021. Never did I think that my son with a significant intellectual disability would not enter a school building for more than a calendar year. More than an entire school year. He got through it. His team was nothing short of superheroes, but he deserves better. He has the right to access his curriculum in an appropriate and safe environment. Masks will help make both of those qualifications reality. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, the floor is yours.
Bill Pfingston, 17 Jessica Drive. I'll be short, thanks to the way God made me, and somewhat sweet this evening. That'll be the tough part. First of all, I really would like to thank you guys for listening. I sent most of you an email on that side of the table, thanking you for listening and for your patience. And I also mentioned that I hope you all listen with open ears and act with an open heart, because that's why you're all there. Mr. Olsen, I sent you some other emails regarding my youngest son and some issues that we thought were going on in his classroom. And I apologize for wasting your time with those emails, as I wrote to you. It was a misunderstanding. That's what you get for listening to a second grader. I do want to clear up an area of confusion, though. When the board voted for an opt-out for the classroom, I would consider the gym a classroom. I would also, which I learned this evening from my other child, while in music class, they are allowed to opt out of wearing a mask because it's a classroom unless they're singing. Now, once again, as I said in an email that I wrote you guys, the event in the classroom did not define the opt-out. It was while in the classroom, you have the right to opt out. I noticed in the wording that was sent out on the opt-out form, there was extra verbiage added, which I crossed out in both the electronic and the hard copy form, which I sent back to you. So I would appreciate going forward either tonight, if you guys could define that, or reply back to me an email, phone number. You got my phone number, over a coffee, I don't care. But it is a gray area, and I don't think we're truly abiding to what the board voted on. Oh, and I'd like to point out that still no children have died from COVID since we last spoke. Someday it may happen, you know, and someday some kid's going to get hit by a bus. And someday someone's going to drown in Wasserman. And someday something bad's going to happen. We can play the someday something bad's going to happen all night long because it's life and it's going to happen. And it's sad. But we're acting to the best of our knowledge, and we're acting within reason, parents, because we do care about our kids more than anybody else does. But what stays the same is the pattern. It's the elderly and the sick that remain the victims to COVID. That same target audience are the ones that still religiously wear masks, practice distancing, received 1, 2, and or 3 shots. The children remain resilient due to their young immune system, and their bodies become stronger by fighting off viruses. I think we all understand that. They need to get sick so their immune system builds stronger and they become adults. They don't need to get COVID, but they need to be what the world throws at them. They need to fight that off with their body. In fact, the sad truth is that due to a government decision, more children have died in a single drone attack over in Afghanistan since we last spoke than all the children in New Hampshire since the corona wasn't introduced to New Hampshire. Finally, I'd like to share my opposing view to 2revolution.net. Merrimack has a granite slab. I believe it's right outside the wall there. And the granite slab slates Merrimack, 1 town, 4 villages. The concept of living as one through many is embedded in our blood and unfortunately the water that we drink. We do not need to shame our children for being born the way God made them. And I have a true story that happened within the last week or so. I told you where we live on Jessica Drive, and it's a nice neighborhood to walk on. And some houses have signs outside their houses, and one house has something to the effect of "Here, Black Lives Matter." And I swear to God, as the day is long, my youngest child, who's about to turn 8, looked up and said, "Why don't we matter?" So my issue with this is, yes, everybody matters. I get the left, the right, the in-between. Everybody's pulling people different directions. But my youngest child, he does not see black, red, green, whatever color you want to be, or whatever religion or whatever you're attracted to. He doesn't care. He cares about Pokemon. He cares about people. The difference he sees, if someone has a full head of hair or someone doesn't have hair, that's what he notices. He doesn't think one person's better than another, and we've taught him that. We taught him, don't look at what people are, look at who they are, their actions, because that is what really matters at the end of the day. And I fear that in what I've read and what I've studied on this 2revolution.net, they're shaming people for events that they perceive need to be fixed. And as hard as we try as a society, as a parent, there's always going to be a bad group, there's always going to be a good group. You're never going to change that, but we don't need to shove it down the young, innocent kid's face. So I ask you, when this goes forward, to reconsider it. I actually started a website, I don't know if it matters, it's www.no2revolutions.com. So I plan on feeding on that. It's a anti-2 revolutions website. But thank you for your time, and I tried to keep it short and sweet.
Thank you. Shannon?
Naomi Schoenfeld, 10 Independence Drive. Thank you for accepting public comment via email. Please be aware that those attending tonight's meeting in person do not necessarily represent the broader voices of the Merrimack community. Rather, they represent those who are comfortable attending an unmasked indoor gathering in a matter that is counter to CDC's published guidance that masks be worn in indoor groups by all individuals, whether vaccinated or not, in places at or above specific levels of community transmission. Similarly, I urge you to take any unilateral petitions or demands made by small groups of Merrimack residents in their proper context. While they may provide valuable insight into the beliefs and desires of that subgroup, they do not represent Merrimack as a whole and should not be treated as if they do. Lastly, I would like to voice support for the district's consideration of a 2 Revolutions strategic planning initiative recently posted to the school district Facebook page. Whether this specific vendor or some other approach is ultimately chosen for our district after public and district level evaluation, it is wonderful to see competency-based and student-centered approaches being considered by our schools. Thank you for your dedication and work in this complex time. Naomi Schoenfeld.
Thank you. Ma'am, you're up.
Hi, my name's Natalie Reyes-Silverman. I'm at London Court. I'm going to read this. I've heard that whether or not kids are wearing masks depends a lot on the individual's teachers' feelings. The teachers have been left to police masks, which is exactly what the school board didn't want, with kids on different lists. Kids have been chased down hallways. Some teachers reportedly pull their masks down to talk while making kids keep theirs on. I hear there's a high school teacher that had threatened all of his classes, saying something to the effect of, "This is my personal mission to make it so all of you have to wear masks all of the time." Gym teachers are making kids keep masks on during their entire physical active gym classes, even if their parents have opted out. Older kids who know enough to stand up for themselves seem to be left alone, while some younger ones keep a mask on all day, even though their parents signed the opt-out, because nobody tells them that they can take it off. Our children, especially our little ones, are helpless pawns in all of this. I have a few stories about how this isn't working. These are just personal stories. There's a child age 12 in the middle school. During the first week of school, the bus driver accidentally drove by the child. The bus company was notified, and the child was picked up immediately by a different driver. The child entered the bus, and the female bus driver started yelling at the boy, screaming at him to get off the bus. The child froze as the woman kept repeating herself. The child stepped down, and the bus driver lectured the child on how the mask has to be completely over his nose before entering, and talked down to this child as if he was doing something awful. Parents watched this entire incident. Since the incident, the child has been in a panic about his mask, and he is afraid he will be in trouble again, and that's in quotations, because his mask slid down. The child has been diagnosed with ADHD, anxiety, and since the incident, his behavior has been more reactant. Child 6, Thornton Ferry. Child attended school the entire pandemic without a mask requirement at a private school. Since starting Thornton's Ferry, child has begged daily not to go to the unsafe school. She cries every day and says she doesn't have to wear a mask anywhere else. She is showing signs of fear that she will do something wrong if the mask slides down. Parents spoke to the principal expressing this concern, and the principal stated, "We as a school don't want to draw attention to any child, and reminding your child to remove their mask is drawing attention." Principal was lectured that she is 6 and that the child still needed to be reminded every day to wipe her butt properly. And they are expecting too much from these young children. I also just want to speak about To Revolution. I've been Hispanic in America for 26 years. I went to school in a predominantly white area, and not once did I ever feel like there was systematic whatever racism happening. My dad came here from Dominican Republic. He also disagrees with that bullcrap too. It's wrong, and what you're doing is you're teaching children that for whatever reason that their white skin makes them superior. I don't get it. And I don't think that my children need to be taught that. I see people shaking their heads, and I'm sorry, but I've been Hispanic in America for 26 years, and I know that. I know what it feels like to actually have real racism done to you, and I've never had, like, a teacher look at me and be like, "Oh, your last name is Reyes, so you must be stupid," or something. Like, that's not, I never got that. So I disagree wholeheartedly, because my family came to America to have a better life, and not to focus on skin colors. So thank you.
Shannon?
Thank you. My phone fell asleep. Sorry about that. Kim Elliott, 78 Jessica Drive, for public comment. I would like to attend tonight's meeting. I'm choosing to provide comment through this email after watching the last couple of meetings and seeing people in small contained space without masks. Thank you for allowing this option so that other voices may be heard. This is my 24th year teaching in Nashua and my 13th year as a parent in the Merrimack School District. I have been attending school board meetings since the 90s. Sometimes the only people in attendance are the people who are presenting something that night. Perhaps we have the pandemic to thank for the increased involvement in our system. However, right now the optics look very skewed. The people who are choosing to come in person are not representative of all the stakeholders in Merrimack. Please know that many families support the health and safety decisions the board has made, even if we aren't there to fill the room. I provide some local numbers to show the difference between these district-based decisions. On September 14th, the superintendent of the Nashua School District released the weekly numbers for positive COVID cases within the entire district. Nashua has 17 schools and over 10,000 students. Over a 4-day time period, there were 10 new cases reported. In comparison, Bedford High School, just the high school, not the district, reported 21 new active cases during that same time period. Nashua is mask mandated. Bedford is mask optional, with very few kids wearing them. Regarding curriculum decisions, I know that proposed new curriculum goes through extensive analysis, possible pilot programs, and committee review. Curriculum was never flashy. It never drew large numbers of people to school board meetings in the past. I've watched Nashua Board of Ed meetings draw groups of protesters even when nothing curricular was on the agenda. I hope that does not happen in Merrimack. If it does, I ask that all board members stick to the process and evaluate materials/programs as you always have done. Thank you for your commitment to our community. Thank you for maintaining order during public comment. From home, it is noticed that you are all remaining objective and professional. Kim Elliott.
Ma'am, it's all you.
Lindsay Thibeault, 19 Pleasant Street. I think it's pretty clear that we're not going to agree. No matter how much research, data, and recommendations are presented by either side, there's never going to be a definitive answer. There's differing opinions per the CDC, the WHO, among doctors, specialists, etc. Our own government has changed its position and narrative multiple times. So really, I think it's time that we, as free American citizens, take in as much information as possible and make the best educated decisions we can for ourselves. At the end of the day, we are the land of the free, and that is one of the most beautiful things about America. Why are you trying to take that away? Let me make health-related decisions for myself and my children, and let everyone else do the same. Let's stop all this back and forth and go back to the core freedoms of America. Let's keep it simple and focus on our kids' education. This subject has been well exhausted. Lastly, I feel compelled to mention that the educational focus should not be under the guise of transformation, as 2Rev solicits. We may need an educational strategy, but we don't need an organization that incites division and shame. It takes the focus away from the basics of education. One of many areas of immense concern found on their website is a page called Looking Out to a Different Future. Overt and covert white supremacy is the main topic. But we're all one big human family, and there's only one human race, are just 2 quotes in the Triangle of Shame, which is printed right here, all the things that make you a white supremacist on their website, that would indicate to our kids that they're white supremacists if they believe that. This is what they want to teach our kids. I think you'll see that social indoctrination is their focus, not educational excellence. Thank you.
Shannon?
Robert Reisman, 8 Iris Drive. Hi, this is Robert Reisman. I'm emailing to advocate that Merrimack adopt a masking policy that is similar to that of Hudson, New Hampshire. In brief, the policy is informed by the number of cases in the town, with numerical thresholds set each option. I believe that masks are mandatory if there are over 50 cases in the town, for example. Also, there is universal masking below the age of 12, as these kids cannot be vaccinated. Individual students may be opted out based on IEPs and doctor's notes. With pediatric COVID cases rising and no vaccine yet for kids under 12, this makes sense at the moment. I also wish to vocalize support for the use of 2 revolutions as a tool for moving forward equitable and learner-centered schools and systems. Thank you, Robert Reisman.
Next up at the microphone.
Hi, I actually have a question I hope somebody can answer for me, because I've heard a lot of mixed reviews. Is it true that because we are no longer under a government-ordered state of emergency, the school board can no longer put the school in full remote or any form of remote? Is that the case?
Typically, we cannot answer questions in this forum.
So you're not going to answer that?
But to my knowledge, we cannot go remote.
Okay, that's what I was assuming, because I have a lot of people that I know that would like to speak up against masking in schools, but they're scared of going back to full remote. And I wanted them to know, who's ever watching tonight, that can't happen. Also, in reference to the R2 revolution, that's not for our kids. I've seen racism. My father's Hispanic. I've seen it. I've walked into a business with him before where the person there down in South Carolina, where I'm from, started speaking English to him. And he had to look at them and say, I'm so sorry, do you speak English? Because I don't know Spanish. That's racism. That's not happening in Merrimack schools. We're not labeling people based on their race or their color. It's just not happening. I went to a high school where it was 95% black. I was a minority. I've seen racism. We don't have systemic racism in New Hampshire. That's not what we need to teach our kids. And if we do, teaching them to hate themselves so they can like other people is not the way to do it. Thank you. Oh, also, I'm so sorry. I'm Sabrina Beebe of 81 Wire Road. I totally forgot to lead with that. I'm sorry.
Sara Hartwell, 49 Joppa Road. Dear school board members, I believe in a time of health crisis so large it's categorized as a pandemic, we should be listening to the doctors and scientists. Those doctors and scientists in charge recommend masks in conditions like we are in now, especially for the unvaccinated. I truly feel that until kids are eligible to be vaccinated, they should be protected. To protect all, but especially the involuntarily unvaccinated, masks be worn at all times in the building. Thank you for your time.
Next speaker.
Tom Gibson, 25 Packard Drive. I just have one question. Is the only emails you receive are pro-mask and pro-whatever? Are they the only emails you receive?
I note that she's reading the emails as she's receiving them, so she's reading 100% of the emails.
And every single email was pro-mask.
It seems that way so far.
Madam Chair, I have read all the emails that came to public comment at sau26.org, and there are no more to be read tonight until the end of the meeting.
Thank
And
you.
if
Okay.
more come in during the meeting, I would be glad
And
to read
my
them at the
other
end.
comment is, I had 2 boys that served in the military. One came home and one did not. And he did not fight for socialism, for you to tell us what we need to do with our children.
Next speaker, please.
Heather Callahan, 5 King Henry Court. I have some papers I'm going to be referring to. First, I'll say that, can you hear me? First, I'll say that in my 11 years of being involved in the schools here, so far this mask policy for September has been the messiest thing I've ever seen come out of Merrimack. And I can't imagine that anyone thinks that this is working the way it is right now. I'm going to share with you a statement which so far has garnered 100 signatures in its first 4 days. And this statement is to notify you respectfully of our intentions going forward. As of October 1st, 2021, we, the undersigned, will not comply with the mask mandate in our Merrimack schools. Masks have not proven to be effective at reducing transmission of COVID-19 in school settings. A mask mandate infringes on our parental autonomy to make medical decisions for our own children. Merrimack's current mask policy violates safety guidelines put forth by the World Health Organization. And I quote, "Children aged 5 years and under should not be required to wear masks. This is based on the safety and overall interest of the child and the capacity to appropriately use a mask with minimal assistance." Quote, "There may be local requirements for children aged 5 years and under to wear masks, or specific needs in some settings, such as being physically close to someone who is ill. In these circumstances, if the child wears a mask, a parent or other guardian should be within direct line of sight to supervise the safe use of the mask." Quote, "Children should not wear a mask when playing sports or doing physical activities, such as running, jumping, or playing on the playground, so that it doesn't compromise their breathing. We expressly prohibit any employees or associates of the Merrimack School District from coercing or encouraging our children to wear a mask. We support the right of the parents to decide." Once again, this has been signed by 100 people so far in only 4 days. I'm sure there will be many more signatures as more people hear about this. Respectfully, we're not going to do it anymore. We're putting our collective foot down. No more. I've been talking to a lot of Merrimack parents during these past few days, and I've been trying to get a sense of where everybody stands on this issue. And what I've largely heard is that people are concerned about their rights being taken away. We need to defend our rights. We need to protect our children's well-being. We need to prevent organizations and curriculums which sow racial division and discord from infiltrating our schools. And we can do all of that in Merrimack. We can do all of that right here in this room. They aren't requiring masks in Bedford, in Windham, in Londonderry, in about half of the districts around the country, and in pretty much all of Europe. And their schools are still functioning fine. All that being said, I'm feeling very optimistic. I'm feeling optimistic because you are our elected officials. You are the officials we chose to represent us, and I know that you will represent us. So thank you very much.
Next speaker.
Jennifer Greenwood, Doll Road, Merrimack, New Hampshire. I'm here today to remind everyone that our choices to make medical decisions for ourselves and children are still being taken away. There is an opt-out option for parents, but that still requires some mask time to be worn in school buildings. Faculty and staff do not receive this option. I would hope that as board members, I would hope that as the board members are voting on these policies, they understand that it's really impacting choice and in violation of the people's constitutional rights, civil liberties. As a result, this policy is also consuming, resulting into a black hole that is unproductive. I am hearing that there are shortages for teachers and substitutes. If everyone who is involved with the school system is allowed to exercise their civil liberties and have the right to choose for themselves of what the proper medical decisions fits their needs, we would attract more resources to support the school system better. As a parent, and now getting involved more at the school board meetings, I would rather enjoy working in researching areas that are useful for the school and stop focusing on this, but I cannot until this policy is expired. The policy you are supporting is unsustainable, and you truly need to ask yourselves if you can follow this as a part of your personal life 24/7 and be accepting that your personal choice is being taken away unconstitutionally. It is not just what the currency policy is, but in addition, being forced to adhere to any changes at a whim with no guidelines to know when or why a change is appropriate. This policy is very vague and appears to be that way by design. Keep in mind that any change directly impacts and takes away from personal choice to many families by a board that does not know each family, nor has an understanding of the true impact. Let's reprioritize and move forward with being productive for our school system instead of non-productive, costly distractions. We need to come together and put the trust back into the parents in their right to choose. On another topic, I have questions around surveys. How are the surveys audited to ensure that they are appropriate, that there's an appropriate population of students represented? How many surveys are allowed for each student? How are the surveys audited to ensure email is correlated to a student? How is the data handled and presented to ensure that it's non-biased? Who is leading the surveys, and how can I get a hold of someone for my questions to be answered? Thank you for your time.
Next speaker.
Hi, my name's Alyssa Smokler, and I live at 26 Beacon Drive. First, I'd like to say I'm a lifelong resident of Merrimack, again, and I graduated in 2007. I would like to say that I believe the parents should have the choice to mask or not mask. I personally feel that the CTR program wouldn't benefit our community. I am so strongly against this program that I, in fact, would pull my child from the district. And let me tell you, I'm not confident about my own education. Like I stated previously, I graduated in 2007, and I feel as an alumni, I definitely didn't receive an adequate education at times. I had an IEP, my family paid out of pocket for Sylvan Learning Center at Pennachuck Square for 2 years with an approximate dollar amount of $7,000 to $10,000. Then after I graduated and started and went to Nashua Community College, again, taking pre-algebra twice with extra help, it took me to pass. Oh, and don't worry, it only took me three more times to pass regular algebra with extra help and tutors. Finally, the professor looked at me and said, "It's not your lack of effort, it just doesn't click." They passed me. Another $2,000 though. I think algebra was the standard math at that time. So after feeling a little failed by my education, I'm here to fight for my child's. Not everyone will agree with me or understand my point of view or my side, but maybe we can all be heard and come to a happy medium. Obviously, I don't want to pull my child. Like I said, I'm not confident in my homeschooling abilities, and I'm sure it would put a strain on my personal relationship with my child. So this really isn't something that I want to do, but if I have to, I will. Lastly, I'd like to say thank you. I feel that this is the greatest community ever. One of the board members was involved in my education and was always so supportive and helpful. There was never a lack or a need that I had that she didn't answer. When COVID struck and she knew I was stressed, she reached out to me and got my son a tutor and really went above and beyond, and it means the world to me. The teachers and paras I've been around through the Merrimack School District have always been super wonderful. It's not the teachers' efforts that lack. I think right now we put a lot on our teachers, and I don't think that they're the parents, but at times where parents lack, the teachers have to pick up, and a lot of the times I don't think we realize how much they pull out of their own personal pockets either, or how much they do take home, because they do really care about their students and the community. So I think we kind of have to sit back and really remember that, like, the caring cupboard was made for a reason. There are families that don't have a lot, and we have to remember where we came from, and everybody struggles and everybody needs help. That gives me much faith that you will hear what our community is saying tonight and do what is best for our town. Thank you.
And real quick, I'd just like to do a quick check. By a show of your hands, how many people still have a comment that they'd like to make? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, next speaker, please.
Naomi Halter, 10 Everest Drive. Obviously, there's two really distinct viewpoints going on here, and there's people way on one end and there's people way on the other end. And I could go into detail about my personal reasons for why I'm making my choice. What I like about the current policy that you have with the masks in the school buildings in the common areas when classes might be mixing, but not in the classrooms where it's the same group all the time, is that it's a compromise. A sign of a really good compromise is that the people on the end, nobody's happy. The people who want masks all the time aren't gonna be happy, and the people who want no masks all the time aren't gonna be happy. It's a middle ground. So while my preference obviously would be that everyone wear masks all the time, and I do have very personal reasons for that, I think you guys have come to a good compromise. At the very least, I would like to see that policy continue until such time as the younger kids can get vaccinated, because you can't really yet say everyone has the choice to be protected in the way they want to be protected, because the people who want their young kids vaccinated don't have that choice yet. And so like I said, I think this is a good compromise, and I would like to at least see it continue. I'm also going to address the 2-Rev issue. I understand that there are processes that these things go through, and that companies have value statements that don't necessarily reflect the product they offer. Sometimes they do, but I also trust the school board to evaluate what this company is saying and decide if it's right for our town. I'm sure there's a process there, and I don't have a problem with you talking to different people and getting different perspectives. Thank you.
Okay, next speaker, please.
My name is Shannon Rand. I'm at 1 Blair Road. I have 2 children in the Merrimack school system. I am also the product of the Merrimack school system. My daughter is a senior, and my other daughter is a freshman. I didn't think I was going to come and speak. I want to say thank you for all your efforts up there, because I understand, being a volunteer myself, how hard it is right now during this time. And I appreciate every single one of you listening. And Bill, I see you there looking, and you're very thoughtful with your eyes. I can't see the rest of your face, but you are very thoughtful and observing how the parents are feeling right now with masks and the 2-Rev. I understand being in the volunteer program, how hard it is, because I'm president of a sports team, and I have to look at the pro side of wearing masks and the people who don't want to. And what I've come to me as a person, just as the president of the organization, it's difficult because you have to look at the high level of it. And I listen passionately. I understand both sides of the argument. We're never going to meet one side or the other. And I think, as the previous speaker said, if you're making both ends angry, then you're doing a good job. I do think myself that it should be a parent's decision on wearing the masks. But again, I'm not there for thousands of children either and employees. I just wanted to come up here and thank you for all the hard work, and I know the hours that you put yourselves into this. For the 2-Rev, I just started dabbling into it. I'm not a pro person for that program. My daughter, during COVID, came to me and she's like, I've never looked at a person's color before, Mom, but now all I see is on TikTok or Facebook or YouTube. It's all over the place. Why are people acting this way? And I looked at her and I'm like, great question. Why are we acting this way? And I don't think as a school we should be promoting it. And thank you for listening. I appreciate all of you.
Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Emma. I'm a student at Merrimack High School. And I just wanted to note how it doesn't really matter what you decide to people who feel as passionately as me and the children and the parents in this room and the parents in this room, because despite that we're supposed to wear masks in the hallway, I don't. I never walk into the school with a mask. I never will. So whether you make masks mandatory or leave it the way it is, I'm not going to change what I do. So I'm just suggesting that you just let everyone choose to do what they want to do, because save the teachers the hassle. I'm not going to change what I want to do because not only am I anti-mask, I'm anti-stupid, and I think it's stupid. So I'm just not going to be doing it.
Well, thank you. We always welcome students to give their input. Next speaker.
Mark Fazio, 9 Whitewood Lane. So I'm here tonight to voice my concerns on the selection of Two Revolutions as a consulting group and strategic planning advisor. My issue with the group is that after studying their website, other social feeds, everything else I could find about it, I really couldn't find anything that discussed what improvements, if any, they had delivered to the districts they've worked with in terms of actual educational outcomes. So a for-profit company like Two Revolutions, which had shown significant improvement in measurable educational outcomes, I'm certain would be touting that somewhere where I could find it. But unfortunately, I was unable to. So I asked, what outcome are they trying to deliver? So leaving aside the concerns for a moment over divisive racial ideology, what are we paying this group for? They've been around for a decade. What track record do they have in improving standardized test scores, graduation rates, college attendance, or any number of specific measurable achievements? By now, there should be some evidence of their success. But all I've been able to see is MBA speak and euphemisms on empowerment. Competency-based and student-centric education sounds good, but those are words and not results. So there's nothing concrete or specific that would point to success on metrics that most parents would know and understand. So I've done strategic planning for a large organization in the state of New Hampshire. I'm familiar with the process. Really what should happen, there should be a set of goals coming from the district leadership that are specific, measurable, and achievable. With those goals, one can then determine who the appropriate partner might be to help achieve them. I urge this board to reevaluate their decision to employ the firm. I would argue that an appropriate set of educational improvement goals should be developed by the district first, and then, only if unable to develop an improvement plan internally, an appropriate consulting group should be identified that has a track record of delivering results in the areas identified. So thank you for your time and the opportunity to speak, and I look forward to hearing the board's actions on this issue.
Madam Chair, Cinda, I received public comment at 8:04. Would you like me to integrate back in?
That would be fine.
Great. Okay, thank you. Britney Damon, Turnbuckle Lane. I wish only to go on record against masks in our school. You have heard plenty from other parents, so I will say only that it is the decision that should be made by parents and parents only. As far as Two Revolutions, again, it seems as though many have already stated their opinions on this. I cannot express my disgust more with this organization. When the people who are the instructors claim to be professional disruptors, I do not see a bright future with these people. The proponents of this group state, well, it hasn't started yet, so let's see. My defense to that is that it has started. According to the email we received from Bill, we are already in a partnership with Two Revolution, and they will be involved in helping select the next superintendent. This is one of the most troubling parts. They state that they believe in the staff being diverse as well. I am surprised that the teachers are on board with this, knowing that they want teachers to look very different than most of those that we have. So I've got a little glare. I'm going to move this up. As said earlier, you can opt out with a 30-day notice, as 2 other districts have already done in New Hampshire. Hopefully Merrimack will do the right thing and think of our children, and if not, I know a lot of parents that will seek alternative ways of education, me being one of them.
Okay. Ma'am?
Hi there. I just wanted to start by saying I thank your sons for their service to our country. I really do. Cheryl Debelis, Coda Road.
Thank you.
The mask issue is divisive. I understand. I echo a lot of the sentiments that were stated earlier from Naomi. But my concern is that the Delta variant is so much more highly contagious. If you think about the science behind it, an R naught of 1 means that one person gives it to one person, and the total spread of the virus is therefore contained. The original strand of COVID had an R naught value somewhere between 2 and 3, and the low 2s is what they had approximated at. The Delta variant is estimated between 6 and 7. So that means for every one person who's sick, they will infect between 6 and 7 more. Not only that, but the complications when you get the virus have been much more severe, with more severe hospitalization and death. If you look at populations and the areas of our country where they have taken away the mask mandates and have opened up everything, people are in hospitals, they are dying, they're out of ICU capacity. I personally know somebody who just passed away at 37, a mother of 5. It's everywhere. And the kids are dying. They haven't yet died in New Hampshire. That doesn't mean they're not going to die. And if I can prevent, if there's something that we can do together to help save the life of even one child in the state of New Hampshire, why wouldn't we want to do that? And I just want to address a couple of points that have come up tonight. And I think a lot of parents had a lot of really good points, and I understand. They talked about anxiety and how it's hard for people with anxiety to put on a mask. I can agree with that because I'm a person with anxiety who wears a mask. I'm here tonight with anxiety, talking to you folks, even though it makes me terrified, because I think it's important, and I'm going to push through and do what I feel like is the right thing to do for our community. And I would ask that we all consider doing the same, even if it makes us feel uncomfortable, because it's the right thing to do. So overall, my advice is just to follow the science. You know, as soon as we are able to get the kids vaccinated, or at least have the parents have the option of getting the vaccine, I would love to have everybody mask up. Just until, you know, they're saying a few more months, right? A few more months to get, you know, the kids vaccinated. Let's, you know, can we come together and do that? And then there was one comment earlier about why can't the kids in classrooms not wear a mask while singing. The science has proven that singing is the largest vector transmission of COVID-19. And that is because of the additional projectiles that are spewed out of the mouths of kids while they sing, that's the science. Then they're following the science. So again, that's definitely what I am advocating for. Going into quickly the critical race theory, I think when I was younger, I did not understand that how embedded some of the racial history of this country how it has shaped our society. I didn't understand. It was because for myself, I didn't see racism on a day-to-day basis. I didn't look at somebody else and think of their skin as being an issue or a problem.
Excuse me, ma'am. Please do not interrupt.
Okay.
Please continue.
Sorry.
You're fine. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good. So I never thought of it as being a thing, right? But then when I started learning more about the history, like about redlining, most of you probably know, but the history of this country, once black people finally had overcome segregation, there was actually legislation where banks would not allow black families to buy homes in certain areas. They would not give them access to a mortgage. And that created pockets of wealthy neighborhoods and pockets of less wealthy neighborhoods. It allowed white homeowners to invest in a house versus black people, where a lot of times they had to rent. And that created this legacy of generational wealth. So if you look, a black family is likely to have about 12% the generational wealth of a white family. And I wouldn't have known that unless I'd done research. All that I'm saying is, this is not about teaching hate. It's about educating our people on why things are the way they are, to understand more about what privileges we may have over another person, what is luck, what is embedded in our society, and how can we treat everybody and give a little bit more equity so everybody has a fair shot at life. Anyway, that's all I had to say. I want to thank you guys so much for your time.
How you doing? AJ Gutierrez, 10 Danbury Drive. I want people to make the decision. You want to wear a mask, wear a mask. You don't want to wear a mask, don't wear a mask. But to say that wearing a mask saves a life is like saying drinking Diet Coke with your McDonald's is anything. Like, what are we doing here? Please leave that to the parents. If I want to mask up my kid, I'll mask up my kid. If you don't, it's again, guys, like, what are we doing? A year and a half later, there was nothing to prove that wearing a mask is doing anything for these kids except hurting them. Thank you.
Hi, Kathy Komar, Belmont Drive. Latest CDC. CDC is not aware of any randomized control trials that show that masks or double masking or cloth face mask coverings are effective against COVID-19. Now, this is very divided. Everybody has said that. I agree with a lot of what you said. It's not about either or. It's about giving the parents the choice. So we're not saying everybody has to wear a mask. We're not saying nobody has to wear a mask. We're saying, it's my kid, I'll make the decision that I think is best for them. And that's basically what it comes down to. We're not for them, we're not against them, we're not anything. We are for personal choice, which is what we deserve as parents.
Hi, I'm Lila York. I'm from 46 Belmont Drive. This is not what I do. I didn't plan on speaking. I'm just here because I feel like it should be a choice. My daughter has asthma and depression, and last year I had to choose other people's health ahead of hers. Sports is what keeps her going. If she doesn't play sports, she's at home, she's depressed. Last year we sat there and we cried in the kitchen and hugged because we didn't know what we were gonna do. She had to go play sports with a mask on, struggling to breathe. It was either that or she stays home and becomes suicidal, and not knowing what decision I have to make. We are all in the same storm, but we are not in the same boat. Everybody has different things going on in their lives, and it needs to be a choice for the parents. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, and just real quick, another show of hands. How many do we have? 2 more speakers? 1, 2? Okay, you, him, and then we're done? Thank you. The floor is yours.
Tiffney Castellucci, Babusick Lake Road. I need to say to all of you that these past few meetings have been a very heartful, we've been very emotionally involved. It's been a very heartfelt subject for so many of us, regardless what side you want, mask or not mask, choice or no choice. I think all of us are feeling a bit of kind of like we're alone. We don't know which way to turn. And with this being said, I did not intentionally say anything to any of you over the past few meetings to hurt anybody directly. I got my emotions mixed up with my words. My children mean everything to me, as I'm sure if any of you on this panel have them, you know what I'm talking about. You want nothing but what's best for your child. If your child can't have something because 5 others have it and you see, oh, well, you know, I'm really sorry, you can't have the sneakers and I'm sorry that, you know, we can't afford it this week, and you feel bad for that child, or you can't do this because we don't have the money to do that, or you can't do that because Sally's mom said no. Whatever it may be, your child being sick in front of you and you not being able to heal them, okay, that can happen with a lot of diseases. So back to me saying I am sorry to each and every one of you, because nothing directed to you in the past 3 meetings was intentionally meant to harm anybody or to down you in any way, shape, or form. So with that being said, I'll move on. It's sad to hear people repeat how they have the choice to wear the mask but deny us the choice not to. Make no mistake, this is not just about a mask. It's about our right to have a choice. It's about our children's rights to have choice. A very brilliant man once said, and I quote Abraham Lincoln, "America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroyed ourselves." And that is what's happening right now. The education our children receive should be preparing them for life in America, not conditioning them. Whether that be with a mask by choice, that should be ours to make and should not be taken away from us. The choice one makes depends on how you view life and the habits you adopt. Everybody has different habits. My extra habits may not be what your extra habits are. I may like gardening. You may like watching TV. That's our choice. Now, how's about this for a suggestion? My daughter, yes, I pulled her out of the public school system because I could not see her being pulled back and forth. Mask one day, mask not another day. You can play with these kids, but not these kids. It's just gotten to the point where there's so many different territories that you don't know what you're sending your child into anymore. And she is at a new co-op learning center on top of me homeschooling her. And their policy is, with any COVID case, we suggest that all families take the precautions they see fit. They see fit, not anybody else. Us parents are allowed to choose what precautions we want to take if our child is subject to somebody with COVID. And it may be good. There's some people that have spoken about, you know, I have anxiety, I can put a face mask on. What about those that have suffered severe trauma? And there's reasoning behind they cannot be masked. Has anybody sat there and thought about that? Has anybody done research on that? Because I am a trauma survivor. I cannot put anything on my face because it flips a switch like that, okay? And it's not fair. One size does not fit all with all of this. And it's not fair that the one size that does fit all is the one with the mask. It shouldn't be masks versus non-masks. It should be our choice. And this choice has divided this town so horribly that it's almost beyond fixing. And we leave that choice up to you guys to give us our choice and our rights back to raise our children and make decisions for our children as we see fit. OSHA, per OSHA guidelines, 19.5% oxygen level needs to be maintained before oxygen deficiency sets in. My husband has worked on pipelines, and he has been underground many, many times. They wear these little things on them, and if it beeps once, they immediately have to evacuate, okay? So anything that goes under that 19.5 on their meters, they have to evacuate the whole because they're starting to suffer oxygen deficiency. Now, if we're putting masks on these children while they're doing extracurricular sports, can anybody here walk up and down a flight of stairs? Or let me see, can you run up and down a flight of stairs with that mask on and tell me that you're not feeling oxygen deprived? And that your mask isn't soiled with wetness? This needs to stop, you guys, and it stops here. We're pleading with you not to have to go further than this. We've given everybody the options to hear us out, and nobody wants to listen to us. It's either the mask way or no way. And that's not fair. We all want choices, and if we want choices, we have to bend a little bit on each side. It's a fact, everybody's going to die someday, whether it be hit by a car, whether it be by COVID. There's a lot of people in ICUs, yes, with COVID, I agree with that. But the underlining of it, a lot of these COVID patients have had the vaccine, and they're in the ICU because of it. I know, okay? I know, because I've had 2 people that I know and hold dear and close to me that both died after they got the vaccine. So people can shake their heads in disbelief of what information I'm saying, but it is what it is. Everybody has a story, and everybody has a different opinion. And that opinion is what makes America great. We're allowed to have it. But we're being neglected that right now. And we just want you to see how we're seeing things. You can't just have one side and not the other. If you're gonna meet us in the middle, meet us in the middle. You know, we've had teachers that have said, it's not our job to babysit the children. Well, we signed the opt-out forms, and these kids are being made to exercise with in gym with masks on. After calls to the nurse saying, no, that's not our policy, they're not allowed to exercise with masks on. Well, we have several parents in here right now that their kids have been made to exercise with masks on. I mean, it's either make this rule and stick by it. You can't just floor off of it whenever you see fit. It's not fair. It's not fair to these kids. There's no structure. And that's what kids gravitate towards and thrive on, is structure. I think everybody can agree on that in their experience of being with children, that structure is a good thing. And with all of this chaos, that's not left. So please consider letting us make our own decisions again. You also have been handed in front of you a petition for a special meeting. Pursuant of RSA 1972, we, the undersigned, duly registered voters within the Merrimack SAU 26 School District in the town of Merrimack, New Hampshire, hereby make an application to our school board to warn a special meeting to act upon the following questions. To see if the voters of the Merrimack SAU 26 School District will vote to adopt the following provisions pertaining to requirements to wear face coverings within the Merrimack SAU 26 School District. The use of face coverings shall be optional on school property for all students at all times at the sole discretion of their parent or guardian. The use of face coverings shall be optional at all times for any employees and visitors on school district facilities and attending school-sanctioned events. The use of face coverings shall be optional at all times on school property for all students at the sole discretion of their parent or guardian during sport practices and events. This petition has 148 signatures. We got this 148 signatures in 12 hours. 12 hours, not 4 days, not a week, 12 hours. And for somebody to say or write in that, you know, this this means nothing, we could spend a week on it if that's what's needed to see how many people really actually feel that they want to support this. Because we, like I said, 12 hours, 148 signatures. And last I have is, we all have been so concentrated on the masks. What about the other precautions that you're supposed to be taking along with the masks? Because the CDC, the FDA, all of the health organizations are all requiring that if you're going to implement the mask, you also have to implement the other precautions with it, because not just one will work. Now, if you're going to implement the mask to these students, implement the hand sanitizer, the washing stations in between. Wash all of the desks off in the classrooms. That's not happening. It's only happening at the end of the day, and the janitor is the one that's doing it. Now, these kids are passing through class from class. Their hands are touching everything. Who's cleaning this up in the middle? And then our kids are being blamed for spreading a virus. They're the only ones not touching everything when they don't have a mask on. I mean, it's even come almost like second nature to adults that wear them all the time, that it's a habit forming. You get a habit forming. You're adjusting your mask all the time. They're falling off the ears. They're touching it. Once you touch that mask, if you read the recommendations, you are not supposed to have that mask anymore. You're supposed to go and wash your hands and get a new mask. Okay, so if you're going to enforce one thing, then you need to follow across the board. You can't just pick and choose what it is that you wanted to enforce. Thank you very much. And last but not least, I do not approve CRT being taught in our school system in any way, shape, or form. For those that didn't come from a minority family, I do. And I can tell you, we haven't had any problems with racism because we teach within our households, okay? I come from a colored family. I have colored people in my home, okay? We don't receive any racism. I've received more hate from speaking at these meetings than my family has received in the entire time that we've been alive, okay? I have had people knocking at my doors. I'm sure it's not any of these, but yet we're hearing all these comments saying, oh, we're the ones that are really feisty. We're the ones that can't keep composure. Well, I'm sure that none of these people are the ones that are banging on my door at 1 o'clock in the morning and sending me death threats through PMs, okay? It's not nice. It's not right. I don't like getting that. And then you have people that are saying, oh, well, I'm in fear, so I didn't come. I wrote you a letter. I'm in fear. I'm getting death threats. But I'm still here standing up for choice. This is what America was based on. It's free country. Let us be free and make our own choices for our kids. Thank you very much.
Mike Drouin, 5 Vanderbilt Drive, Merrimack. I'm a Navy veteran, disabled, had part of my spine cut out from my second deployment. I serve on the Conservation Commission. I'm a library trustee that you all elected, whether you realize it or not. You know, I see the same people coming to all these meetings. There's a lot of energy here, and it's good to be passionate, but sometimes we got to step back and see if our passion is getting the results we need or we're looking to get. These people have heard the same thing you're talking about tonight over and over. They've received dozens of emails. I think their mind is made up, and there's nothing you can say to change it. So, you know, maybe we should focus on the $80 million school budget. You know, it's 30 million more than Hudson's, and we're the same size as them. Why aren't we talking about where textbooks are coming from? Who writes them? You know, you think they don't have bias? I'm sorry, I have anxiety when I speak in front of a lot of people. But, you know, there's a lot of things going on in our town. You know, there's a lot of positions open on subcommittees. Planning board is looking for people, you know. So, you know, if you are passionate about, you know, fixing up your town, you should, you know, volunteer like I do, you know. Thank you.
And that's a great note to end on.
She has to go at the end.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, Jeanine Notter, 19 Whittier Road. I received a message that $76,000 has been spent for Merrimack to enter into a contract with Two Revolutions. So nobody mentioned it, so I thought I would. That's money better well spent on hateful concepts. Thank you.
So at the end of this public comment, I do want to take a moment, sir, to express our thanks for your service, as well as the gentleman in the back and that family who ultimately, you know, paid the ultimate price. And I know there's others in the room who have served as well. So certainly thanks all of you and those in your family that have served. Okay. Now we're going to move on to the next portion of our agenda, which is recognitions. And before I move to this next portion, I just want to be very clear that this is a business meeting now, so we're not able to do commentary back and forth. But please do, you know, stay, and we will have public comments open up at the end regarding any content that we've discussed. But we do ask for just some quiet and respect as we complete this part of our meeting. Recognitions.
We have no recognitions this evening.
Okay, we will move on to the informational updates. Superintendent update.
Yes, thank you. Well, we're pleased to say that Thornton Ferry Elementary School is being recognized by the American Heart Association as a Heart of Gold top school in New Hampshire, based on their dedication to the mission of health and well-being of our students. So congratulations to Thornton Ferry School on that. From the high school, I want to congratulate custodian Kevin Freeman. Kevin was recognized last week on New Hampshire Chronicle. Co-host Erin Falu, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, highlighted a meeting with Kevin and her time spent with him, and she learned about the positive attitude and his upbeat spirit, which apparently has been evident for quite a long time in the high school and in Merrimack, and his impact on the students. What's important about this is we've always said that everyone matters. It doesn't make any difference whether the person who is in charge of the school system, whether the person who sweeps the floors, picks up the trash, makes the food, takes care of the students in terms of their health. Everyone matters. Everyone makes a difference. So congratulations to Kevin on his recognition on New Hampshire Chronicle. We're very, very proud of him. Lastly, let's see, I have one more. Finally, I want to congratulate the varsity football team. In addition to all the great things that students do in terms of theater arts, music, performing arts, etc., and in the classroom, pleased to say that the Merrimack High School football team gained their first victory over Nashua South this past weekend, 28-26. That's after a narrow loss the week before, 44-43 against Nashua North. So congratulations to all the players and the coaches. They have done an outstanding job.
Finally, something I think we can all agree on. So if we can just give our football team a round of applause.
Yep.
All right, continue on. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Any questions? No? Okay. Assistant Superintendent.
Thank you.
for
I'll have
curriculum.
yes, thank you. I'll have updates at the next board meeting for you. Thank you.
And Assistant Superintendent for Business update.
Thank you. Pretty soon, we will be wrestling with the 22-23 operating budget. Seems a little bit strange to be saying that, because as I look at my computer and I see all the budgets that I've been a part of for the past 20-something years, there's a lot of folders there, and this is 22-23. There's one aspect of that is when we go and we set the operating budget, one of the major portions of anything that we do is obviously benefits. That's one of the big drivers in our operating budget. It has been for a very long time. And there have been eras during the past 20 years where we've seen increase in health insurance of upwards of 27%. Let me take this off for a second so you can hear me. Shortly, we will be given the guaranteed maximum rate. I know the number of what it's going to be, but until the trustees of the Health Insurance Trust Fund have their annual meeting on October 5th, I am going to keep you in abeyance and in suspense and kind of announce that number at the next meeting. It will help with the budget that we have. It may even produce a reduction. So it's just something to look forward to because we haven't had a lot of these recently. So that's the one big thing I just wanted to announce and leave you in suspense with until the next meeting. And maybe we'll have the same audience come back so I can make a grand announcement. Thank you.
All right. Maybe we can order pizza next time or something.
That'd be awesome, yeah.
All right, any questions? Okay. The school board update. I just have an update. It was mentioned earlier in public comments that we did receive a petition for a special meeting. It was received this morning by us from district administration, which was regarding mask optional everywhere on school property at all times for students, staff, and visitors. We have sent that to our legal counsel regarding the process and any next steps, so we will keep the public posted of these next steps. And the next one is the student representative update. Any updates, Ms. Varney?
I don't have an update.
Good. Okay. I know, just the first couple weeks of school, so just getting rolling. So we will move on to the old business portion of our agenda, and that I will turn over to Mr. Olsen regarding the Health and Safety Task Force update.
Thank you. We have had a mask policy, which certainly we have heard a lot of comment on over the last few weeks, and you passed a policy, a revised policy, on August 23rd, which indicated that students would have the ability to not wear masks in a classroom and everywhere else in the building. At that time, I presented to you data for Merrimack on the number of cases per 100,000 population, and also the rate of antigen and PCR rate of positivity over a 7-day period. And I've included those numbers in your packets for tonight's meeting. At the time, and the word that has been used tonight a couple of times, compromise at the time, you entered into, I think, a compromise solution. And I'm here tonight, based on our conversation back then, that we would evaluate this on a monthly basis. I'm here after meeting with the Health and Safety Task Committee, meeting with our leadership team, listening to the New Hampshire Division of Public Health Services presentation of September 15th, where part of their recommendation was that everyone, staff and students, wear masks indoors at all times. But I'm here tonight to recommend to you that we continue with the current policy that was enacted as of September 1st, which is the option for students not to wear masks in classrooms. Now, we are seeing an increase in the number of positive cases. We are seeing an increase in the number of students and staff who are quarantining. We've seen an increase in the number of students who are displaying symptoms and are excluded from school at this point in time to self-observe, and the families. I want to thank, first of all, the families, first of all, for not sending their children who are symptomatic to school. The community has been excellent in that regard. But the numbers of students who are being excluded because they're exhibiting symptoms is increasing also. And I have that data. That data is on our website, both the DPH data that pertains specifically to Merrimack, and also our daily real-time numbers of cases that are reported by the school nurses in every school is also posted on the website on a daily basis. It's not entered until about 2:30 or 3 o'clock every afternoon. So in the morning, you'll see the prior day's data. So I know it's controversial. And I know you respect my job in terms of protecting the health and safety of our students and our staff. My job is to try and keep our schools open. It was awful last year, as we all know. For any time students had to go through remote instruction, it was awful for many of the students, but it was very, very difficult for parents, some of whom were faced with an ultimatum from work, that you either show up for work or you're going to lose your job. And I heard that repeatedly. Now, I was not in Merrimack at that point in time, but I have heard this universally in talking with other administrators many, many times. So with that responsibility of trying to keep our schools open, trying to keep our classrooms staffed, because there are not many substitute teachers out there right now, I'm making the recommendation that we continue with the compromise that I think is important. It doesn't give everyone what they want in terms of those who are anti-mask, those who are pro-mask. But I think it's a reasonable compromise to do something to enhance the health and safety of the children and the staff in the school system, and to allow us to keep classrooms staffed to the greatest extent possible, and to keep children in our schools where they belong. The numbers of cases, in talking with pediatricians throughout the entire last 19 months, the number of cases of children who have been treated for anxiety and stress and mental health disorders has gone through the roof. And that has to be a consideration. That primarily has been a result of the isolation of students. And so there are a number of factors. And I believe me, I understand the issues on both sides. I absolutely, most certainly do. But with respect to my job, to try and protect the health and safety of everyone, I'm recommending that we continue for the month of October what we have done throughout the month of September.
Questions from the board? Board Member Barnes?
Couple things. One's a typo, and it's the 5th paragraph, and it's except as stated above, masks will be required in the school buildings at all other times, plural. But then the next line, masks will be worn by athletes who participate in indoor sports. That was one that was kind of
We pulled off.
I wasn't expecting it at our last meeting, but it's the question I have, and actually I hope you don't mind if I ask Lori, because I know you have NHIAA experience.
Wait, are we still on the task force update or the actual?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were in the policy.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry.
I'll wait until you're
Just
ready.
point of order.
How's that? I'll wait till you're ready.
I don't catch you very often on a point of order. So.
I know, right?
You always catch me. Just any questions before Mr. Olsen? Board Member Peters.
I just had one question on the spreadsheet we had of the quarantine students. I don't know if it's just a typo, but the last column where it says total in quarantine to date, there's a 15 under the 64, and I just was questioning what that 15 is.
That, Laura, that is because that day's data had not been entered at that point in time. So the row above that, the 64 that it referenced, is the one you want to focus on.
Okay.
The others will be updated. That's one of the problems, is that at the time they're updated, you have to look at pretty much the day before that for the actual complete picture.
Questions? Board Member Barnes.
Actually, I just put my packet back in the wrong order after I reviewed it over the weekend, so sorry, guys.
You're good. You're all good.
I'm usually much better than that, you know that. But just quarantining, can we just kind of go through, can you explain what the expectations are for quarantining and, you know, who's being asked to quarantine and when?
Yes, it's primarily those who are in a household, unvaccinated, that it's recommended to quarantine for 14 days with a test about 3 to 5 days into the quarantine. With the understanding, certainly also, that there is, with the virus, physicians have indicated there's a 14-day, up to a 14-day incubation period. So, you know, who knows if a person, even with a negative test, might eventually contract the virus. But primarily, the quarantining is for those who are either close contacts, but also particularly in households unvaccinated. Okay.
And my second question around that was, do we have a record of who's vaccinated? And when you're making those decisions, do we have record of who is vaccinated to be able to, are we going on an honor system? How is that working?
Well, we don't ask people whether they've been vaccinated or unvaccinated. Basically, we pretty much go on an honor system. And, you know, sometimes a parent, in fact, oftentimes a parent will say, well, no, the child has not been vaccinated, or none of us have been vaccinated in the house. And so we don't go necessarily searching for that information.
So, but the thing is, we're quarantined based on the information that they're unvaccinated, correct? Or, so I guess the question I have is, if we're not getting like clarity of answer, and we do know maybe 38%, it's less than 40% of students last I knew, 12 to 18 were unvaccinated. Should we just assume all are? And, you know, as far as parents, that's a whole other ball of wax. That tops out at about 60%, using rough numbers, because I'm using. So I guess the question is, should we just operate in an assumption of non-vaccination, especially with our students, because they are, you know, statistics say that, you know, they probably aren't.
Well, certainly those that are under 12 years old, we
Right,
go
but I'm saying 12 to
certainly on the
18 is like
assumption.
under 40% still.
Mhm.
So that's why my question was, should we just go from an assumption of unvaccinated at that point? Because we're not really asking the kids whether they're vaccinated. We're not necessarily getting, you know, have record of whether they are or are not.
Yeah, well, we know that two-thirds of them in Merrimack, children who are eligible for the vaccine are not
Correct.
vaccinated, certainly, so.
Board Member Hardy?
So my question is, how are we defining a close contact? And this is I think I just missed it somewhere, and it's probably somewhere, but I don't know where. So let's say someone in my kid's class tests positive. How are you defining a close contact? Is it a close contact if they were unmasked, if they were within a certain number of feet for a certain number of minutes? Like what's the new definite? I feel like it changes.
Well, it's primarily if a person has been within 3 to 6 feet of a person for more than 15 minutes in a 24-hour period of time. You know, certainly the nurses have been very careful in terms of who's been masked, who's not been masked, in terms of the likelihood of a child being exposed. And so a lot of that is individual case by case in terms of where they were, in what close proximity was the child to someone who has since tested positive.
So masked or unmasked, right? Like
that's correct.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
because I really wasn't sure where we were at that point.
Other questions? Could you do me just a favor and just state the numbers at the beginning of school, just the high-level numbers of the positivity rate versus the number of COVID cases at a high level, just at the beginning of September or the middle?
Yes, I will provide you with the data that is on our website, and the two figures that the New Hampshire Department of Health Services uses in their matrix is the rate of new infections per 100,000 and the antigen and PCR test positivity rate over 7 days. The rate of new infections per 100,000 is over a 14-day period. So in, let's say August 12th, the rate of new infections per 100,000 was 162, and the test positivity rate was 8.8. Let's skip to August 23rd. The rate of new infections per 100,000 in Merrimack was 196, and the test positivity rate over 7 days, 7.3. Okay. Let me skip to further date. On August 31st, the number of new infections per 100,000 was 355. That was on August 31st. The test positivity rate was 11.6. On September, well, let's go to September 2nd. The number of new cases per 100,000 was 302, and a test positivity rate of 7.4. Let's skip to, well, we can skip forward to the 16th, last week. The number of cases per 100,000 was 310. The test positivity rate was 6.60. So still relatively high number of cases per 100,000. The test positivity rate has dropped to 6.6. Now, sometimes, and I'm not a health professional, I'm not an epidemiologist, but sometimes that can occur with an increase in the number of tests, okay? And so the numbers, that's what the trend has been a little bit upward, a little bit downward. But still, both those numbers, the number of new cases per 100,000 and the antigen PCR test positivity rate, place us, according to the DPH matrix, in a level of substantial transmission. That's where they recommend universal masking, as we have presented before, but you know, I'm certainly willing to recommend to you that we keep our eye on the number of cases in the school system under the current practice of allowing parents to opt children out in classrooms.
My second question is, are we showing any evidence of spreading in our schools at this time?
Well, the number of cases, positive cases, is always difficult to understand whether that spread as a result of a child being in school or outside. And that's where I would need to talk a little bit more to our nurses and to Erin Olsen, our health department official, to see if we can really trace the positive cases to the school environment or whether they're in the outside environment.
Thank you.
I can't hear a thing, just so you know.
Board Member Peters.
I just had one more question based on some of the comments we heard earlier, or really more a statement. I do think we need to clarify the policy with all the teachers, especially regarding specials, so that we have consistency across the board.
Mhm.
And the use, I mean, and it just is probably a communication thing that
We'll
we
do
need
that
to ensure.
clarification tomorrow because we do have procedures that were that the music teachers have discussed and that we are familiar with, but we'll renew that conversation tomorrow with the specials.
Okay. Any other comments? Shannon?
I would just say, based on what I heard tonight, that when we go toward quarantining, that we approach it as an assumptive of non-vaccination of all students in close proximity, because the statistical likelihood is high that they are unvaccinated even if they're eligible.
Are you expecting a motion from us, or do you want to just leave your recommendation in case?
Well, I certainly would like to get some consensus in terms of your approval or lack thereof of continuing, because we did state in that policy that we would review it on a monthly basis, and I think to do otherwise would be ambiguous for the parents and our staff.
Shannon?
To that end, it doesn't impact the policy, because the policy doesn't get into quarantine, it only gets into masking. So to that end, I move that we instruct administration to have a quarantining practice with the assumptive that any student in close proximity to an active COVID case is assumed unvaccinated.
Do I have a second? I'll second for discussion.
Again, if we are not taking medical records, which I don't think we're asking to here, which is fine, having the assumption that if they are, if we're asking whether they're vaccinated or not, to make a determination about whether they should be quarantining, and we know statistically that, 2/3 of our students are not vaccinated, even if, at the eligibility rate, 2/3 are not vaccinated. At the uneligible rate, of course, it's 100%. So knowing that puts us at the vast majority of our student population being unvaccinated, I think we need to look at it as an assumptive all. And then at this point, that would put us in a quarantining practice that could be applied consistently and accurately.
I just, one thing I would just want to clarify is that quarantining only applies to those students who are within close contact of a person who tests positive within their household. Okay, so I just want to make that clear. Otherwise, either in the community or in a household where a child might be fully vaccinated, they just sort of self-assess for symptoms. So I just wanted to make that clear.
I would, as a parent, generally when the nurse calls and tells you that your child has been a close contact, you have an opportunity to say, oh, okay, well, my child is vaccinated. What do we need to do? And there's 1/3 of the parents whose child has been vaccinated, and they shouldn't, I don't think they should be forced to quarantine simply because the other 2/3 have not been vaccinated. I think they should follow the guidelines, follow their symptoms. If they become symptomatic, they need to isolate, quarantine, and test, which is the CDC guidelines on vaccinated individuals.
Totally agree. What does DHHS say about it?
About quarantine?
About the quarantining. What are the DHHS guidelines?
Well, in fact, I have those on our website. I'm not sure if I actually brought them with me, but the quarantining, once again, would be if in contact with someone outside of their household or within their household and they are vaccinated, they pretty much self-assess and watch for symptoms. If they do become symptomatic, that's when they should have a test. But if a child is from a household where a person tests positive, one of the parents or siblings, and they are not vaccinated, then they are subject to quarantine. And certainly recommend that they be tested after 3 to 5 days.
Is that consistent with what you're suggesting? Okay, it sounds so. I just wanted to confirm for clarity. All right, Jenna?
So my understanding is that currently in the Merrimack School District, if you are a close contact and you provide your child's vaccination card, then they are treated as if they are vaccinated and they do not have to quarantine. Is that correct?
That's correct. They
Okay.
self-assess in terms of symptoms.
Correct.
Yeah.
So if somebody hasn't provided their vaccination card and is called with a close contact, they would have the opportunity then to produce the vaccination card and not have to quarantine, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah,
If
so
they
I would
decide.
only be, I'm definitely not, and it definitely should be that, I definitely don't want to assume everybody's unvaccinated. The reason, some people got vaccinated is in order to be able to make sure their child could stay in school and not have to vaccinate. So yes, absolutely, we should assume, if we have no evidence to the contrary, that the child is unvaccinated. However, if the parents then elect to produce the vaccination card, they could then proceed with that protocol. Okay.
Yes, Shannon?
The method to my motion was because I heard the term honor system, and that's not producing documentation. That's the first I'm hearing you're actually asking for production of documentation. Could you please clarify for me, because that's the reason for my motion, that if someone said that they are vaccinated and then they only have to go into a practice of self-assessment, that you ask them, or do they produce a card?
I would, to be honest with you, I'd have to check with our nurses to see if they actually ask if a child is vaccinated, all right?
And if they tell you yes and maybe they hadn't, that's okay? Or do they have to produce the card? Right, exactly. That's my point. So we're going off an honor system.
Yeah, because, you know, we have to
No?
be careful with any violations of
understand.
HIPAA laws.
So, I mean, isn't it, I mean, you say, if a parent, if you call them and say, you know, your child's going to be quarantined because X, Y, and Z, you know, whatever, and the parent says, my child's been vaccinated, can I produce their vaccination card? And that's not a violation of HIPAA. That's a parent saying, I don't want my child to be quarantined.
Yeah.
Here's their vaccination card.
Yeah, not necessarily
Yes?
if the parent volunteers that
Right.
information, yeah.
Okay.
Does that change the motion, or is this something that we table for our next meeting? What are your thoughts?
At this point, I'd be glad to withdraw my motion at this point if you want to withdraw your second, but this is something I think we need to get some tighter communication on. If we don't know it and we can't speak it clearly at this table, there's clarity that needs to be made.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay. I'll withdraw my motion with the expectation that our administration will send around some clarity to families, specifically as it relates and how we can consistently enforce the policy or our protocols around quarantine as it relates to all grade levels.
We'll do that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so back to the Health and Safety Task Force and the recommendations for October. Board Member Hardy.
I'd like to make a motion that we continue the current policy as it was enacted at the previous meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's 5-0-0. We will retain the policy for one more month and reevaluate as we approach November.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, moving on to the update of the use of masks by student and staff policy. Mr.
Well,
Olsen.
as you know, on the 23rd, you approved the mask policy that was different from the one that was originally approved on August 19th of 2020. I have checked with our counsel, Attorney Kathy Peel, and she has suggested that we rescind the original policy, since the new one is substantially different from the old one. So what she has recommended is that we rescind the policy that was originally passed on August 19th of 2020, which is to be replaced by the one you passed on August 23rd of this year, 2021.
Now, just kind of as a point of order for this board, I know we've typically have approached the masks, I'm so used to masks, policies in general. We have approached it with a first reading, a second reading, and a third reading. And, under emergency situations, we can waive that protocol. So first of all, do we want to treat this as a first reading of the policy? That's the first question I want to ask. I agree with that. I would like to treat it as the first reading of the policy because that is what we've always done. So I just wanted to clarify that, which means that what we would expect then for the next agenda would be that it would be the policy second reading. This allows us, again, to go back, get input from the public as it relates to this. So, you know, just to make sure that this is on the website so the policy, so the public can review, and then we'll do a second reading. And then what we can do for the following board meeting is put it on the consent agenda. And then if someone has an issue at that point, we can pull it from consent. Otherwise, it'll be adopted 2 meetings from now.
That's
if
fine.
That works. Okay, great. So we will allow then the first reading of the policy. If you could read that for us and for the public, that would be great.
Sure, let me,
Cindy, would it help if maybe just all take a little section? Would that be helpful to break it down?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay.
Do you want to read the general requirements section?
sure.
And then I'll read the pre-kindergarten through 12th grade. And then, Shannon, do you want to do the duration and legal references?
Can do.
Okay.
All right. Excuse me, let me just,
Cinda,
So-
point of order.
Oh, sure.
We're actually,
You're
it's
reading
it's
this
reversed.
one?
You want the one that's only one of two, and only has legal references on
Gotcha.
page 2.
All right.
So it's
Yeah.
basically, if you want to do maybe the first
I thought
3
this was gonna be
paragraphs, next 3
removed.
paragraphs,
We did not agree to that at all.
and then, yeah.
So this is just the reading?
I know, but I thought it was gonna be omitted. Lori asked at the last meeting that that would be taken out.
Yep.
So we can reiterate that
That's
at
part of the process of having it read first.
the last meeting was to hand it out in preparation for this meeting, so.
I'd be happy to read it if somebody, if we don't, and if we all want to share, that's fine, but I could just read it if you want.
Right, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jenna.
It's just page 1 of 2 and 2 of 2.
Yep.
Masks will be worn by students, staff, visitors, and volunteers within the school building, with the following exception. At the written request of a parent or legal guardian, a child may opt out of wearing a mask only while in a classroom. Please note that this opt-out applies only to students. All staff are expected to be masked while indoors when students and/or other adults are in their presence. Masks do not have to be worn when students, staff members, or volunteers are outside, at lunch, snack time, or during mask breaks that are held outside. Masks will be worn while on a van or school bus. Except as stated above, masks will be required in the school building at all other times, we're gonna add an S there, including transition time. Masks will be worn by athletes who participate in indoor sports. No person, including a student, shall be required to wear a mask if their disability or a medical condition prevents them from doing such. In such cases, documentation of the disability or medical condition will be required, and in such cases, alternative precautions will be sought in order to achieve the same or similar safety benefits. Staff, including contracted service providers who work with students who are deaf or hearing impaired, students learning to read, and students who rely on lip reading, shall wear clear masks or visors/clear face shields, which enhance service provision. Mask decision will be revisited and possibly modified on a monthly basis based on local COVID data. Duration. This policy will be enforced as of September 1st, 2021. It will be reviewed on a monthly basis upon analysis of Merrimack COVID data in relation to the New Hampshire DPHS matrix and criteria on levels of community transmissions. Outbreaks or multiple clusters within a school/school district as defined by New Hampshire DPHS, or a change in the New Hampshire DPHS defined level of community transmission for Merrimack may result in a change to this policy. Page 2, legal references. I have to read all of this, yes? Okay. Right. New Hampshire RSA 194:3, Roman numeral 8, powers of districts available at, and there's the hyperlink. NHRSA 194-C:4, Roman numeral 2J, superintendent services available at, and there's the link. NHRSA 200:39, exclusion from school available at, and there's a link. Emergency order number 2020-04, and emergency order 2020-15 available there. First reading July 28th, 2020. Second review August 10th, 2020. Third review, am I reading all this part? Yes? No? maybe so. Okay, third review, August 19th, 2020, approved August 19th, 2020.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know just from when we started, there was already some feedback that Board Member Peters had, and that was regarding the masks to be worn by athletes who participate in indoor sports. So if you could just reiterate that comment so we can adjust the next reading with an update.
Can you repeat what you just said?
Sure. You had a concern that you voiced at the last meeting regarding mass and athletics, and if you could just reiterate your specific ask as it relates to that, and we can discuss that. Thank you.
So my first concern was we didn't actually talk about that in relation since summer, since so much has changed. But my concern is, and again with the WHO guidelines, athletes participating in indoor sports. I had a son who played baseball in the spring when NHIAA required masks on the fields, and that was miserable, and that was outside. My concern is that indoor sports is just 1,000 times worse than being outdoors. And again, I'm going to suggest a compromise position here as it relates to what we saw with the U.S. Olympic team, which was that they wore a mask when they were benched. They didn't wear it on the court or in the sport that they were participating at the moment because of the rapid movement and the lack of transmission. They're not in each other's face, one student's face constantly for 15 minutes at a time. But when they are sitting on the sidelines or on the bench, they very well could be.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yes, I will, certainly I will defer to your choice and your decision on that, because that, oftentimes last year, there were mask policies in place that did not require participation, mask wearing while participating in the sport itself, but certainly while on the bench or assembled on the sideline. Here's where, and I appreciate your comments on this, because the NHIAA has not taken a position on this at all. So, obviously our collective interest is in trying to do what's right for the students. So.
Board Member Hurt.
My suggestion is, and maybe I'm just not noticing what the difference is, but where it says the asterisk, mask decision will be revisited and possibly modified on a monthly basis based on local COVID data. I wonder if that can just be removed, because that's all really covered by the duration underneath. Am I right? Because it says that this policy will be enforced and it will be reviewed on a monthly basis upon analysis. It says the same thing under duration, yeah?
Board Member Rothaus.
So I agree, but I like that it's there just, because I think this is going to be a fluid situation. I do think the mask with athletes, I think that line personally should be completely removed. And I think our athletic department, as we're moving forward into winter sports such as basketball, we're going to, it's going to be day by day, month by month, what's going to happen. And I think just having it there is just putting a strong boundary around it.
I just have one more thing.
All right, Jenna and then Shannon.
Well, this is it's New Hampshire DHHS, yeah? Okay. So I kept reading it the way it was written because that's what I'm supposed to do, but it's New Hampshire DHHS. So.
And along with Board Member Barnes, there's a typo on the paragraph about no person, including a student, shall be required to wear a mask if their disability. The last sentence, alternative precautions will be sought. It says alternative.
Oh, yeah, we're missing an N.
Sorry, that's a teacher in me.
I always think it's better to be picky.
Thank you for catching
that. Shannon.
So I didn't get the question because I was in the wrong agenda item, so it's my own fault. But what is NHIAA's position on masks and athletics during indoor sports?
Local control.
All right.
They've been local control for, through the whole COVID thing. The athletic directors do spend a lot of time together discussing what it's going to look at one school compared to another school, because this year is going to be certainly different than last year, but whatever the home school is, that's the rule.
So Cinda, we have to redraft, he has to go and redraft this, so we need to tell him what to say on that. And, you know, I like Lori's suggestion because A, it's a compromise, and B, it's consistent with our in-school policy, right? Like, while they're playing, we're gonna let them take them off, but when they're sitting down, they should be, wearing a mask.
All right, so
I will redraft that, send it to you within the next few days for your review, prior to the next meeting.
Lori.
I just had one other thing, and I'm not saying we should reword this. This is more in relation to communicating with the nurses. I have two physician friends, and I will not name the systems that they are a part of, but they've been directed by their two hospital systems not to grant exemptions for asthma for masks. And I think if a child has that documented with the school, that needs to be a conversation with the administration and the family, because they may not be able to get that note from the doctor right now.
It's true.
I'll talk with our leadership team and nurses on that.
Thank you. Anything else on this, Shannon?
Just one other thing. Whenever I use an acronym, it's always good in the first reference of that acronym to spell it out in parentheses. So I think that would probably help with those who are following along. So the DHHS would have probably spelled itself out anyway, but just always first reference with an abbreviation to spell it out. But I just agree again with Jenna's point where the asterisk area is repetitive, and although it's just presenting, good writing, so I'd rather we just struck it so it would be published a little cleaner.
Or maybe somehow, or maybe integrate it into that duration policy. Yeah?
Well, it already is there,
Yeah,
you're right.
kind of,
It's
yeah.
repetitive, so I'd strike it all together.
One last thing, when we're talking about spectators in sports, they will have to adhere to our, visitors, all visitors wear a mask policy. Is that correct?
That's my
Indoors.
assumption,
Indoors.
yes.
Yes, okay.
I am fine with the striking of that sentence, except that we need to add "and possibly modified" to that duration paragraph.
Yeah.
Totally fine with that.
So after "it will be reviewed and possibly modified."
Is your microphone on, Jenna?
So after "it will be reviewed," and that's what we'll add "and possibly modified."
Mhm.
So now you know why we have 3 readings. Anything else on this one?
Thank you for all your thoughtful comments.
No, and thank you. Thank you for putting this in front of us, and for giving it to us well in advance. Moving on to new business. So the item is the surplus from 2020 to 2021 operating budget to reduce the 2021-2022 tax rate. Matt Shona.
Thank you. Last year, the surplus that we had, due to not having the ability to hire staff, hire substitutes, hire custodians, hire maintenance people, pretty much, decimated the district from that standpoint. But it did create a surplus. So last year, the surplus was around $4.7 million. And that went to reduce last year's tax rate. The school rate for taxes actually went down by 35 cents. But we all know there are several components when computing a tax rate. One of those is, your home valuation compared to everyone else. All of a sudden, I realized that I got a letter in the mail that my house went from $300,000 to $400,000 in the matter of a day. It's like awesome. I think I'm gonna sell, right? Anyway, so this year, the surplus from the 2021 budget to reduce next year's tax rate is more than 4.7 million because we had a whole year of it. It's 8.163. So it's going to be an $8 million surplus to reduce the tax rate. So again, for the second year in a row, the school portion of the tax rate will be going down. Part of that was because of hiring issues and substitutes and everything like that. And part of it was because we had our guaranteed maximum rate health insurance that I talked about earlier that I teased you with and didn't let you know what it's going to be for next year, that was budgeted for 9.3 and it came in actually at 5.2. And so when you have a $12 million ticket, which is health insurance, and you knock a couple of 4 percentage points off of it, it creates some significant savings. So that combined with a lot of other things created the $8.163 million surplus. As I have in the past, I'll be doing we have like 600 line items in our operating budget. I like to take those, categorize them, kind of quantify it to you, give you all the detail. We post all the detail of every single line item, but give you an understanding to try and classify them and group them in nice big chunks that I can understand myself as well as the public can understand. So that will be forthcoming to the board, and then after that's presented to the board, then I think I have a date with the budget committee, which has not been set yet. But I'll be talking with Chuck Moore about that impending engagement. So that's good news. With all the other stuff going on, to have a surplus to reduce taxes, school portion, or ultimately falls to the bottom line of the overall bill, that is good news. So it's something that we worked hard to get through with limited resources, and that was the outgrowth of it. And it's typical of more than every district around here. I talked to my audit firm, Plotzik and Sanderson. They're all over the state of New Hampshire. They're a major player in the state of New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island, and they are seeing that all over the place. So we're not atypical. This is pretty much typical of what school districts have experienced due to COVID and COVID-driven shortages in various areas. So I just figured I'd let you know that tidbit of information, and we'll give you the detail at a later date how it all kind of came about.
Any questions for Mr. Chevino? No. All right, the next one is the lunch program update, 2021-2022 school year.
Okay, thank you. Last year, during the first 22 days of this period, we'd served approximately like 8,300 lunches. This year, which is nice to have all the kids back, during the first 7 days, we've served around 12,000 lunches. So that's pretty awesome, and helps the revenue for the food service department, which took a drastic hit because of the decrease in the number of lunches. The sale of all the a la carte menus by having the kids eat in classrooms and not having them pick up other items. It's kind of like when you go to the register in the supermarket and there's that candy bar sitting there and you don't really want it, but not that we serve candy bars. We do not serve candy bars in the Merrimack School District. There's that candy bar there. He says, no, I shouldn't take, and then all of a sudden it winds up in your cart. So there was none of that going on. And so, and plus this year, we were still in the seamless summer. It's tough to call it summer, but the seamless lunch program where everybody is getting, a USDA approved meal for free. Please fill out those free and reduced application forms, because that helps us with other portion of our grant-funded operations that are based upon that number. So don't blow that off. Get that done for us. It's helpful. And so the reimbursement for that this year is $4.32 a meal. The year prior to that, it was $3.58 a meal. So the feds realized that they were putting the districts at a disadvantage by giving us such a small reimbursement level, and they actually reacted, and they upped the amount that we were going to get per per meal. So that's good news. So the program's working well. I just want to, applaud our food service workers who have been the last couple of years, handing out lunches in the high school drive-through. I remember that. Dave Zicki was working all summer long, handing out bag upon bag upon bag of lunches. The people that worked with him in the cafeteria, and most importantly, over the past year and a half, Student Transportation of America that was doing delivery runs throughout the community, which was just absolutely amazing for them to do for us. They'd get the list in the morning, they'd map out the routes, Michelle Bancroft would send the buses on the way, and, door to door. Uber Eats with a big yellow bus. So that was kind of a really great thing. So things are looking up, reimbursements are good, participation is good. It should be a good year for the food service department. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Matt? All right. Do we have anything under other? Any other new business that anyone would like to discuss? Seeing none, let's move on to the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to accept the September 7th minutes? Made by Shannon, second by Jenna. Any updates or comments? Lori Peters and then Shannon.
Bottom of page 3, the curriculum is handwriting without tiers, T-E-A-R-S, like tiers, not tiers, like layers.
Shannon?
I really have a big question of why we go from number 1 to number 5 to number 2 to number 3, so in the notes.
So some attention on the ordering.
I have, the thing is, but then there's 5A, and then there's another 5A, which kind of picks up, but then it goes a little different direction, and it's actually I'm not even sure where one set of notes should end and then the next set of notes should begin. So I made the motion for discussion, but I would actually recommend we table it so we can clean it up and get a better copy for public record.
Okay, that's fine. I just have a couple items to add while we're cleaning it up. If we
Yeah,
could,
I
could go ahead
would
and
do it
voice-
while you're here.
Yeah, might as well. On page 4 of 9, under the school board update, Chair Gualyumi noted the Merrimack Teachers Association MTA contract and the advise and confer were up for negotiations in the current year. And then there's this, and wanted to coordinate a meeting between the school board interim chief educational officer Olsen and administration to discuss areas of focus and goals. Those are two separate items, and the way they're kind of grouped in one paragraph makes it look like the meeting I want is regarding those contracts when they were actually two just separate things. So I just wanted that kind of cleared up into two paragraphs. And then page 8 of 9, it lists the correspondence that we've received, and I have a very specific list that I read off of that night that I will send to the central office so that that could be more accurately updated, because it's very vague as to what the correspondence was, but I had it very specifically spelled out in my notes. That's all I have. And then did you want to rescind your motion and table?
Yes, I'd like to rescind so that I can make a motion to table.
Okay.
I'll rescind my second.
And so,
And second the motion to table as well?
I move to table, and you'll second that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed, 500. The consent agenda. Kim Yarlett.
Thank you very much. We have one administrator resignation for a resignation starting on October 5th, 2021, and that's from Nancy Rose, who's our Director of Technology and Media Services, regretfully. And we have no educator nominations.
Thank you. Moving on, then we need a motion to accept the consent agenda. Made by Shannon, second by Jenna. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, 500. Now we will move on to other committee reports. I have one, Jenna and I have one, which is that We did have a call with the superintendent search firm, who is going to begin the process as we defined last spring. So we had that call talking about the timeline, and we have put them, I gave interim chief education officer the heads up, and that firm will be reaching out to our HR director and coordinate with administration. So we will have more information on that soon as it relates to that timeline and the community involvement that we will go through as we go through that process. Jenna, anything I missed that you wanted to add from our?
No, I just want to state so that people hear it really clearly, there will be significant community involvement in gathering feedback as to the qualities and the things that we're looking for in a new superintendent, so you can look forward to that coming.
Any other committee reports? Shannon?
On behalf of the board, I sat in on Parks and Recreation on Wednesday the 15th, and that we went through annual park reviews, and that included O'Gara Drive, which and the fields at Reed's Ferry. Obviously, those are town park, Parks and Rec managed parcels, and just basically some overviews about what improvements are needed for the skate park, what are short and long-term goals for the elements of it, and then just the basketball court at the end of O'Gara Drive is definitely showing wear and tear, and if it's to be used, it definitely needs some help. And then working on things like the backstop at one of the fields at Reed's Ferry, which has a hole in it because they're using it more for girls softball, and it will go through the hole, obviously. There's a lot of activities that will be beneficial to our families that also come to our schools. So the dog park is looking for new members. So if you have a dog and are interested in becoming a member of the dog park subcommittee, they are looking for new members. They are also looking for donations of poop bags and money for mulch. So they have not been able to do their fundraisers, and the mulch at the dog park is needing refreshing, and donations are appreciated because their fundraisers, because of COVID, have been stagnant. They had their last movie in the park, which I know has been a big family draw for a lot of our community. They are having a blood drive Friday, September 24th, which is coming up this week. So if you are in the area and can donate blood, they would appreciate that, and I'm sure the Red Cross needs it very badly. The big thing that's going to hit families is the Merrimack 275th celebration is Saturday, October 30th. It's also the Halloween event for Merrimack Parks and Rec. So it will start from 2 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon with activities for the kids, and we'll end with a fireworks display that should start roughly 6:30 at night. So should wrap up about 7. So it's done a little differently than normal because we're combining activities. And the other thing is, I know that we are reaching out to the school for a student rep, and we may have someone that will be interested in taking that. But if not, we are always looking for a student rep for that. And I think that about covers it.
Thank you for that update. I love the dog park. My dog loves the dog park more than I do, but it's certainly a lot of good work that committee you're on does, around town, making Merrimack feel really like a true community with all of the offerings. So thank you.
And Lori's doing the majority of the work. I'm just the alternate, so I'm just filling in for the day. So
all right. I know you
Credit
like
where
that
credit's
committee,
due.
though.
Oh yeah, happy to support it.
All right. Any other committee updates? Okay. Moving on to correspondence. I have some. I had emails to the entire board. Would like students to wear masks in school and are regarding concern for health with not wearing 2. Wants no mask, kids to opt out of optional masks 2. Kind of all board other. So we've all received emails. One person thankful for reinstating public comment. Another person thankful to the board for service and for adding the teacher at JMU's. A person expressing concern about 2 Revolutions, which is the firm hired to support the district in facilitating vision work with the community. A person thankful for our service and expressed concern for lack of respect and poor language by public comments. Another one that was thankful to the board for being respectful at last meeting and requesting an open heart and an open mind for upcoming decisions. And then a person that wants masking in school and more defined criteria. I did say that I would mention that. The person wanted the suggestion, oh, I'm sorry, there's another one. There was one person that had written to me asking for a greater breakdown on the website by class, even if it's generic counts, so that parents can make a choice, in certain classrooms if there's 80% of people without masks or 20%, I said that I would relay that feedback during this section. I did personally get one that was more of a personal attack on my character and wants masking decisions left in hands of parents. I did get another one from a family concerned with a selection of 2 revolutions requesting a statement from the board denouncing its relationship. Mr. Olsen and I did get a person that wants masking decisions left in the hands of parents and not the school. Jenna and I did get an email from a person that was concerned about how opt-out communication is being handled with communication by a teacher in a classroom. Jenna responded to that. Any other correspondence? Shannon?
I received an email from a student with concerns about the Two Revolutions organization. Got an email from an educator with concerns about implementation and enforcement of the mask policy, things like hallways and not wearing them in the hallways, and as soon as they are out of sight to take them back off. And then I did get a parent that had concerns about a bus stop near his home. And so I connected him with Matt Chevenel, and it's been very helpful for him. Thank you.
And I also got a correspondence on Two Revolutions and just concerns about what they're actually going to do in the schools.
Any other correspondence? Okay. Moving on to comments. Any comments? Shannon?
I just want to clarify. I know that there's been a lot of comments. Again, it's coming back to masks, but that the school board truly made it optional, and that was that we're not looking out for kids. So I've heard that quite a bit. I want to frame what my intent of the vote that we had was, and when it comes down to it, we need to look after the district, 100% of the district, all of the students. So we need to find a way, and I think it plays into an earlier comment that was made that it's that finding that common ground in the middle where you're not going to make each far side happy. I think that was absolutely the intent of my motion. So the goal is to make sure that every child in this district has a place to come and learn, and find that way of doing so. And that's really, when it comes down to it, the parent opt-out was truly saying what I feel the motion should be is, what administration is suggesting. So my motion supported the administration's recommendation. However, we know that if we only went that route, that we would leave a lot of children behind. And that was really the intent of my motion. So I would prefer if students were masked, but I know, and it's been proven at the last 3-4 meetings, that we would lose students that would fall further behind academically if we had a hard and fast rule. So is it the ideal of what I wanted? Absolutely not. But what I do want to say is we have to think of every student and those that would not be coming to school if a mask was forced and there wasn't any middle ground. So that was really my position. It's not the most popular, but we haven't found a popular one yet in this conversation. But I just wanted the methodology that it wasn't to make it optional and to be flippant about masks. I really prefer that students do have them, but I understand that we would lose students if we didn't that need an education as much as all of the others. So I just wanted to put that out there because I think that the characterization of the methodology of my motion has been consistently, not 100%, but often misinterpreted, and I want to put it out there about what my process was. So,
thank you. Any other comments? I just had one, and it's for everyone in the room and who was in the room earlier, and I just wanted to thank everyone for such a respectful night. This was, out of the last 3 meetings, this was 100% awesome. That people that care come out and communicate. This is local government, and this is what we do. So everyone was respectful, everyone was voicing their opinion, and we've heard you. At the end of the day, you may not like our decisions and how we go, but I feel, even for tonight, even my decision was swayed to come up and vote in favor of a compromise for the next month. So again, I thank you for participating in the process. All right, now we have public comments on agenda items. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to allow folks to come up and speak. We will alternate with any comments that we may have received since. So I will turn it over to you, Ms. Komar.
Hi, Kathy Komar, Belmont Drive. Mr. Olsen, I sent you an email.
Is your microphone on? If there, maybe you could get a little closer.
Can you guys hear me now?
That's better. That's better.
Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Speaking.
I sent you an email like 4 or 5 days ago. The links, because we have to fill out everything online now for our students, the links, when you go to click on them, they weren't opening up to whatever the policy was that we were supposed to read and agree to. So I didn't know if that was being looked at or not, because I tried to do it again today and they won't open up, and I believe it has to be completed by the 26th or the 28th.
Okay, I will check on that again tomorrow morning. Thank
Okay.
you for letting me know that again.
That's awesome, thank you. And then you were talking about the different numbers for the different towns. Last that we knew, going by the statistics, Bedford only has 75 cases, so I didn't know where you were getting your numbers from. Hudson only has 48, Merrimack, we have 65, and Londonderry has 65, like total. 65 for their town. We have 65 for our town. Bedford only has 75 and Hudson only has 48. So I don't know where these hundreds and hundreds of numbers are coming from. So if somebody could explain that, or if I was to email somebody, if they could tell us where you guys are getting those numbers from.
Yeah, if you could send an email, we'll respond to it.
Okay. And then the free lunch, a lot of people don't know that everybody is supposed to be filling out those forms that, Matt, you were talking about, I believe. And I think that's because we're not assuming that we have to. I only found out about it last year to fill it out. And I think because everything is being done electronically, a lot of people can't get to it because, like I said, I couldn't open up any of the things that I was trying to fill out. So if somebody could just put out an email or something saying that, could please everybody fill it out, even if you don't require it. Do you know what I mean? Because I know that's how we get our grant money back from the federal government. Okay, thank you.
Shannon, any comments?
There are none at this time.
Okay, go ahead, sir. Thank you.
Gary Barton, 38 McQuestion. Mr. Olsen, you referenced recommendations for quarantining unvaccinated versus vaccinated students. I'm wondering what your justification is for that.
That's from the New Hampshire DPH. That's it is on our website. I believe it's properly cited on there. That's exactly where it comes from.
Okay, have they followed the science?
Cinda, yeah,
The
just
reason I asked that question,
I just have to do a point of order because we typically
No,
don't
don't
let
respond.
folks. So certainly any questions you can send to us, but it's an open forum for us to hear you right now and not a dialogue.
Okay.
So I
So,
I apologize for that. I just have to be consistent.
thank you very much,
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And thank you for responding. The Israel, close to 90% of the entire population has been jabbed, okay? And of that, the majority of those have had a third booster. They're looking at a fourth booster. And their rates of infection are astronomical. So the NIHS, whatever, citing that vaccinated or unvaccinated people need to quarantine is stupefying to me. Where's the science? Because if vaccinations work, they wouldn't have any problems, and they have all kinds of problems, literally. And even Fauci said jab people still get and transmit the virus. So if you're going to look at people, whether they're vaccinated or not, everybody needs to quarantine. You can't say whether you're unvaccinated or whether you're vaccinated. And it should be if you're showing symptoms, whether they've been exposed or not. No to 2 revolutions, an emphatic no to CRT. I strongly support the special meeting regarding the mask policy. The administration recommends the recommendations for masks, which have been proven non-effective, and a health hazard. Talked about someone working in pipelines and wearing a monitor, an oxygen monitor. I do it. I've been in pipelines. I wear monitors. I know about 19.5%, 19.3, 20.3 is the upper limits. Any lower oxygen and you start to have to evacuate. So we're wearing masks and we're telling our kids to do it. They get headaches and stuff. So, and you guys are recommending that. I don't. Where's the science beyond that? So thanks for hearing me.
Next speaker, please.
Tiffney Castellucci, Babusak Lake Road. I have 2 questions, and I know you're not capable of answering them, but just to keep in mind. Why are the names and addresses of the people that emailed not given when I have to stand up here and give mine? That's one question, because I didn't hear anybody's names unless I couldn't hear you guys when you were speaking them.
No, she was
You
reading
did?
them. She was
Okay, I
reading
couldn't
them.
hear you.
No,
Honestly,
I
I
did wanna
couldn't hear
correct
you,
that,
Shannon,
yeah.
so I apologize.
No, it's consistent that way, yep.
Okay. The second thing I want to kind of refresh everybody's mind is that these are children. Children have and always will get sick. They get the flu. They get the tummy bug. They get ear infections. They get sore throats. They get strep throat. They get the sniffles. They get allergies. My daughter has severe allergies. My daughter had COVID. She's immune to COVID. Okay, she had it so bad that the doctor's office wouldn't even let us bring her in. So when you're talking about these children getting sick or being around people that were sick, or, let's see a COVID vaccine card, where do you draw the line? Because some of our households my kid is in closer contact with people outside of the house than she is with people inside of the house sometimes. So isn't my nephew. I don't even hardly see him anymore because he's so socially active. So where do you draw the lines at, okay, well, they were in a classroom here. Well, where were they at the weekend? What about altitude down the street, that they're jumping at with God only knows how many kids? Is altitude cleaning all of that stuff that they're jumping in? No. Back to the face masks and what I had previously said, that you can't just implement one thing and expect it to work when you're not following the procedure with everything else. I have literally sat here all night and witnessed everybody that was in this room with a mask on, and who was touching, not touching, who was moving, who was putting down, who was putting up. And just to let you guys know that you guys did reference who earlier, correct? And for all of you that do not know, I guess you could say, for all of you that do not know who is, it's the World Health Organization. And the World Health Organization states right here that masks should be used as part of a comprehensive strategy, okay? It is not sufficient to provide an adequate level of protection against COVID-19. It says that right on the WHO website, right when you pull it up. It also continues to say that simple precautions also can protect you from COVID, which consist of physical distancing, keeping rooms well ventilated, avoiding crowds, cleaning your hands, and coughing into a bent elbow or tissue. It says do it all. And then it continues to say, clean your hands before you put your mask on, as well as before and after you take it off. And after you touch it at any time, sanitize your hands and remove the mask. Sanitize your hands again and replace the mask with the new one. This is right here, and this is who you guys referenced earlier today, or this evening. So, I mean, if we want to recommend from certain places that are giving you advice, then take all of the advice, not just portions of it, because it does matter. And it's not fair if we just pick and choose from certain rules. And like I said earlier, thank you guys all, because I'm sure it's not an easy job to sit up there and listen to everybody bark up your tree, because you guys are the messengers, basically. You guys do make the decisions. You also listen to both sides. But in the end, you're ordinary, average people like we are. So with that being said, I wanted to back up a little bit. And I'm an animal lover. I have 4 dogs at my house, okay? 9 chickens, 2 ducks, and 4 cats, all right? Not by choice. We inherited 2 of the cats when a friend passed away. But with that being said, I would like to suggest that you guys look at turning the dog poop into renewal energy. It would save you money on poop bags, and it could actually give you free lighting. So you might want to look into that, because Lamppost in New England does that, and I'm sure that they would be a pretty good place to start with. So if anybody likes to walk their dogs at night, you can get free lighting and dispose of your poop and you don't have to carry it with you. So have a good night, guys. Thank you.
You too, thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, Jen Page, Nichols Lane. Mr. Olsen, you referenced that case positivity varies with how many tests are being done. That is completely accurate, and therefore comparing current case positivity rates to the summer would not be very useful, because I can tell you that the rate of testing right now is so high with the kids back to school, because everybody who has symptoms gets sent to be tested. I think going forward through the year, you could compare week to week, in school, but I don't think you can compare in school to out of school. I apologize for speaking out of turn earlier about that not being a HIPAA violation, but it's not a HIPAA violation. It's not a HIPAA violation to ask somebody for their medical information or to document something that they're asserting. It would be a HIPAA violation for the school nurse to tell me that her child is not vaccinated, but it's not a HIPAA violation to be asked your own vaccination status if it's necessary for that policy, which is a national policy, not your policy. And then the last thing is the masks at the indoor sporting events. So my daughter is on the varsity volleyball team. We have 2 wins, by the way. When we're in Merrimack, we have to have our masks on, the kids, on the bench and on play. Other teams don't have that policy, and so we're able to follow whatever the policy is of the school that we're visiting. And what I have observed is this is what happens. My daughter is sitting, waiting for her turn to go in. She gets the call, you're in. She takes the mask, she flings it, and she runs in. And they all do this. And I don't know how they know whose mask is whose. I'm sure they don't. As this woman was just saying, in terms of hand hygiene with masks, I mean, I think a policy of wearing masks on the sidelines and taking them off to play is worse than just not having them mask. I think you would be better off to have them not mask and have their, I don't know if it's as easy with basketball, but with volleyball, they're sitting in individual chairs. So they just space the chairs out. So they're not sitting on top of each other. So that was just my thought on the wearing masks on the sidelines. Sounds like a good idea, but I think it probably causes more problems than it solves. Thank you.
Mr. Pfingston.
Thank you. Bill Pfingston, 17 Jessica Drive. First, I'm just going to start off with another true story because I'm pretty good with those. This weekend, I took my family to the Highland Games up at Loon Mountain. And just to feed into the silliness of it all, we took the track all the way up to the top of the mountain. And when I walked into the cafe up there to get a coffee, they told me I needed to wear a mask, which I told them I'm not going to. But they told me my 2 children who were with me were exempt from wearing a mask for some reason. So I had to wear a mask to purchase something, but my children did not need to. So just because of the silliness, I gave my youngest child $20 and allowed him to buy whatever he wanted while I was standing next to him, and we left. But it's kind of the opposite here. We're trying to say how important it is for children to wear masks. Just the craziness of it all. So my conversation that I want to talk about, or what I want to talk about, was the mentioning of having individuals provide vaccination cards. And I'm a history buff. I enjoy it so much. So around 1942, there's a group of people that felt that they were morally, physically, and educationally superior to others. And if you didn't like them, then, or if you did not look like them, act like them, or agree with them, then you were part of the problem. And boy, did they have a solution. They tried the honor system. That didn't work. And then they had their neighbors turn in other neighbors. Then they required individuals to carry documentation. Then they discovered that we'll just have individuals wear a star. All the information I just stated led to a world war and over 6 million people being murdered for what others thought of them. So tonight you disclosed individuals providing a vaccination card. So my question is a star next? And I certainly hope not. Thank you.
All right, floor is yours.
Thank you. Again, my name is Shannon Rand, 1 Blair Road. I just want to talk about the sports aspect of wearing a mask. I am firmly against it. For many sports teams, I would assume all. I couldn't imagine playing basketball, going on the court, not having to wear a mask, and then immediately go off to the side court and try to catch your breath and putting on a mask. Not to mention what Jennifer Page was saying, is that these kids are pulling them off, ripping them off. You don't know if you're picking up your teammates' mask or not, because normally they all look like the blue and white ones because they're just recyclable. It's just, I think that's causing more harm to our children than not. Also, to the masks, I have seen them pull ears. I've seen them pull, if they have earrings in, they get tears. It's just not feasibly safe for these kids wearing them during sports. From a cheerleading perspective, definitely not safe for these kids who are stunting and having to watch a cheerleader all the way up. And when they come down and that mask drops, their eyes are supposed to be on their flyer. And there's so many risks to that. Again, when they're off the mat, they're off the court, when they have to go back and put that mask on, think about it. They are out of breath, and now you're telling them to wear a mask. Have the teams stand up against the wall if you want. Give yourself some space, take some water, but they can't breathe when they get off the sideline, especially football, especially basketball, cheerleading. It is a hard sport, and they can't breathe. So I urge you not to have these kids wearing masks during indoor sports. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Jennifer Greenwood, Doll Road, Merrimack, New Hampshire. In my earlier statement, I did ask about surveys and how they were handled and kind of the data around it. I do want to find out how to get those answers. The other question that I have from hearing Everett from tonight's presentation and a couple of other presentations, I want to understand what data point that we're getting to drop the mask. That doesn't seem to be very clear as to what the magic number is, and I think we all do need to understand it. What I did write for this comment is on the other subject that is not listed for this meeting, but I do feel that it does need to be addressed. I do not support Two Revolutions, critical race theory, also known as CRT, or any aspect of it. There is no need for this in our school system. From my understanding, this was not an option for parents to review the proposal of having a consultation of Two Revolutions prior to the start of this initiative. I did miss the introduction last week, but from reading what this program is, it is a waste of time and again takes away from our children's education. I would like to understand who from the school district is leading this and why. Again, I do not support Two Revolutions, critical race theory, also known as CRT, or any aspect of it. When hearing Matt's budget numbers, I think that the $76,000 could go towards that and go towards other school initiatives that would actually help our children instead of wasting our time on learning the prejudice. So, thank you.
All right, floor is yours.
My name's Natalie Reyes-Silverman. I'm just reading this for someone who couldn't be here tonight, and I guess public information or public, I don't know, I guess it closed. I don't know. She said she emailed, and she sent me like the screenshot, and she said that that you didn't receive it. So she just asked me to read it. If you want me to, I guess it's fine with me.
Please feel free. Yeah.
Stephanie Lynn. Do I have to read like all of that, or I don't know? Okay, she just put.
You've given your name and address, so it's up to you how you want to
All right,
handle
that's
that.
fine. Okay, she said, hello, I wanted to start by saying that I am too afraid to come and speak in person, as there have been members of the community who have had people show up at their home, which was forcefully published at the school board meetings. Perhaps you start a sign-in page on a paper rather than a recorded event with everyone's addresses. I will say that I appreciate the compromise that you've made for the opt-out, regardless of how senseless I think it is for my 8-year-old to wear a mask for 24 seconds walking to PE, only then to take it off. But you can't win them all, right? Oh, God, I'm sorry. I'm seeing her face when she's saying this. When it comes to exercising in a mask, let's use our common sense. This shouldn't even be a topic of conversation. Playing basketball in a mask makes sense to who? If the parents are scared, then they should pull their children for fear of whatever it is that they are scared of. If you want to put them in a mask, send them in 1, 2, or 10, I don't care. I will not teach my asthmatic daughter to cover her face as if she is some walking form of infection. Speaking of infection, as a nurse, I am encouraging you to research what will stop the spread of COVID-19. I will spare you and tell you that N95 and the KN95 masks are the only way to stop the spread. I also encourage you to look up how to be properly fitted with an N95 mask. It's a thing, I promise. We use these for tuberculosis patients, so they need to be fitted tight and appropriately. Then look up how long an N95 is recommended to be worn for. Currently, I work from home until I have my license and livelihood stripped from me in 7 days for lack of vaccination. When I worked in medical facilities, we threw every mask away after each patient. Why is that? Infection control, maybe. I couldn't tell you the last time I washed the mask on my car floor. That superbug brewing should scare you. In my hot, dark car, that should scare you. Take the masks off these kids. The border is wide open. COVID isn't going away. And as far as CRT goes, this is so absolutely disgusting that I will pull my child immediately, and trust me, you don't want that. You don't want that for the greater good of Merrimack. I should not be teaching anyone 3rd grade. Thank you. And just on my own comments about CRT, someone was explaining about the history of mortgages and all that other red line. I don't know. But I can promise you that people who are brown. We don't really give a crap. We really don't. I'm just going to say it how it is. We don't care if you're white, and we don't really think that anybody is above us for the fact that they're white. And I don't want my child learning about CRT, or any child for that matter. And this person was making points that she didn't understand and she didn't know, and like, that's the point. That's the actual point. I'm not really sure how this would make a child more intelligent or whatever. So I just think that CRT really shouldn't be taught in schools, and that it really should be taken into account that, like, nobody really got any surveys on this before they were contracted, and you guys should pull out. Thanks.
Are there any more speakers to come before the board? All right. Any more emails? Any emails?
There are no more that came in.
Okay. Then I will accept a motion to adjourn, made by Shannon, second by Lori. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The meeting is adjourned. Thank you and good night.